After he transformed into a demon, he was finally defeated by the one called the hero. The hero looked down at the fallen enemy with pity. He was consumed by darkness, and the hero could not understand why he became a demon. The lying and defeated man cursed the simple hero, but still said that if his death ensured victory, then it was a small price to pay. His body began to dissolve into black mist, and he recalled the past, a time when he was just himself and could not prove his family's innocence without demonic power. Yet even in that state his soul did not disappear, though it was true hell. It was constantly fed to demons. He lost track of time. Years passed, possibly more than 10, and no matter how much he begged for the torment to end, it never ceased. Finally, only the last fragment of his soul remained. He thought with relief, but in the end, his consciousness focused, the thought continued, and finally, the boy suddenly sat up in bed, gasping for air, eyes wide open in shock. He looked around the lush, unfamiliar, yet at the same time so familiar room and wondered if it was really his. His gaze fell on something brightly shining. A wave of nostalgia washed over him as he looked at it. He took a deep, trembling breath. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, he could finally breathe. Realizing this, other sensations returned. His hands moved, and he once again had a body of flesh and a voice to speak. He got up and reached for the window. The sun warmly warmed his skin under the clear, bright sky, and for a moment it seemed as if he were in paradise. But this thought was instantly shattered by the memory of his fate, how demons captured him and he himself became one of them. This cannot be. When he struggled with this impossibility, a flickering board of light appeared before him. It greeted him for becoming something called a seeker and offered to open the menu. Thoughts swirled. The soul must have been completely shattered, so what kind of miracle was this then? Thinking about it, he agreed and said, "Open menu." He stared at those floating letters. Magic was completely foreign to him, and part of him suspected it might be a demon's trap, a cruel illusion. But standing there, he realized it was the only clue to understanding his situation, and swallowing with a nervous tremor, he dared to make a choice. The menu responded, unfolded, and showed a list: status, skills, quests, message field. The terms were foreign, but he instinctively reached for status, and a new window opened, showing information that stunned him. He was identified as Salim Bergman, a 14-year-old boy with the title of Seeker and level -51. That was his name, and he turned out to be the eldest son of a ducal house. The number 14 pierced him. He remembered becoming a demon at 17, and after the hero's victory, he was sure that more than 10 years had passed during the devouring of his soul. Such chronology was impossible. Returning to the mirror, he saw in the reflection a boy with a slender build and silvery blonde hair, and suddenly a distant memory surfaced. His mother once praised exactly that color when he was a child, and then he recalled that by 17 that bright shine had faded, becoming dull and harsh, and none of it made any sense. He again turned his gaze to the glowing menu, hoping for more answers, selected the Skills tab, but the panel that appeared was empty. It had only 2 words, "No skills," and his eyes widened in disbelief. The discovery stunned him, no skills at all, although he remembered having decent magical talent. Shaking his head, he opened the messages and saw a welcome text that defined him as a seeker training on the righteous path, earning merits through good deeds. He sighed with regret. So this was the path meant to harden the heart, so he would no longer succumb to demonic temptations. The wording was vague, but the intent was clear. He froze before the system window, where a new quest flickered: reach Seeker level 30 to resist the temptation of demons. He recalled his status in the past life somewhere around level 50, but a cold horror passed through him when he read the truth. Salim Bergman, male, gender, Seeker level 14, -51, -51. This number stunned him, because if this was the past, his fall to the demon's temptation would repeat again. He needed to raise the level, but how? The shock from this discovery threw him back into memories, everything he had ever wanted, power to make them pay. He saw his older self, consumed by this desire, which, knowing it would make him an enemy of humanity, still fully accepted it. With such power, he would finally be able to defeat the hero who humiliated him, the arrogant marquis's daughter, and the proud princess who looked down on him. He would not lose to anyone. This desperate craving for power was born from deep shame. He remembered the disappointment in his father's and his servants' eyes, saw how they considered him weak, pathetic, utterly worthless. He was defeated by a simple boy. He was not the equal of the princess, and it was from that barely noticeable crack in his heart that the demon's temptation first began to seep. Temptation took shape in a distorted reality. A voice from the past echoed, whispering that he was completely powerless. He relived the moment when the blonde princess called him a demon, stole and distorted his human thinking and feelings, and with a scream unleashed a torrent of ice upon him. However, the magic was not enough. He withstood the attack. His wounds had already begun to heal, and the princess, once considered equal to the first king in battle, just stared, unbelieving. He loomed over her, laughing, seeing her crawl, and promised to cut off her head. But before he could act, he was interrupted by a common hero. Selim turned and recognized that rude orphan brat. A contemptuous smile appeared on his face, and he spat out his hatred for the hero's righteous life. The battle that followed became the climax of his downfall. This was exactly what awaited those who succumbed to demonic temptation. The hero defeated him, and the demons devoured his soul again and again. Drawn from the depths of that memory, he now understands everything. His soul was filled with immense magic, and that is why the demons consuming it grew stronger and eventually caused the kingdom's fall. He realizes he was not strong enough to resist, but perhaps the barriers protecting people had already weakened and allowed demons to seep in. He just became the first to fall, and the task spins again in his mind. Reach level 30 Seeker. If he raises his level, maybe he can take a different path. He remembers that feeling, how desperately he grasped for power. He never wanted to lose himself, much less ruin the kingdom, but still gained that power. With that last painful exhale, he sharply inhaled, and a new determination ignited in his eyes. He looked closely at the path ahead. Flickering messages appeared in the air, first a greeting, then the start of his main and daily quests. Reaching out, he touched the glowing text and wondered if this was truly the path that would strengthen his heart and raise his level. The system responded, describing the just started daily quest: to pray and perform one good deed to earn experience points. He exhaled heavily, pondering the tasks, decided to try praying, clasped his hands together, but at first, nothing happened. As doubt crept in, a message appeared on the screen that the prayer was completed, and he realized with surprise. He had never before prayed truly sincerely. Perhaps the right mindset was the key, because the experience points remained unchanged. He realized he also needed to do a good deed, and although everything was vague, he decided to try donating to the church. The carriage rattled along the road, and he looked out the window. The scenery was amazing, as if painted with the colors of autumn leaves. What he saw suddenly touched him. He thought such emotion suited an old man more than a 14-year-old boy, but he could do nothing. Memories of a much longer and painful life were still too fresh. This simple moment seemed profound. A wonderful view, a gentle breeze, the rhythmic rocking of the carriage, everything was so pleasant, and he cherished this fragile peace, which sharply contrasted with the 10-year eternity when demons devoured his soul. He touched his face, struggling with disbelief. At first he thought it was a vile illusion woven by a demon or the last flash of memories as the soul faded, but the sensations were too vivid, too real to be just a dream. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice: Katia, his guard and fencing teacher. He remembered her as a brilliant, pure, and incredibly skilled warrior, a half-elf, so due to her long life she had not changed at all, and noticing his distant look, she asked if something was bothering him. His subdued manner stunned her. Concern was visible when she asked what had happened, surprised by his sudden meekness and even suggesting returning to the castle if he felt unwell. But he quickly assured her that everything was fine and asked not to treat him as if he were sick in his soul. However, he was tormented by a painful memory. In his previous life, Katia left, feeling disgusted by his corrupted nature, and he believed that if even she abandoned him, the fall was inevitable. He apologized for making her worry. His apology seemed to somewhat dispel her anxiety, but a slight shade of embarrassment still remained. She sighed quietly, her face softened. "I understand," she said softly. "I apologize." He realized that she was worried because she did not trust him, and this made him regret his harsh tone. He thanked her. She was already completely fine and decided to be more careful, starting with how he spoke to people, recalling that even strange board warned to avoid strange actions. When he mentioned some board, she was completely confused. She asked again what it was about, and he was surprised that she did not see it. Sensing she needed to be careful, she quietly nudged the young lord and asked him to look at his finger because she knew it was visible only to him. He explained that this strange panel usually hides from view but appears as soon as he concentrates. It shows his level and how many experience points are needed for an upgrade, and he found the official name awkward, so he decided to call it the Seeker system. When they reached the place, Salim placed his offering. The church servant burst into fervent gratitude, not believing her eyes. The young heir of Duke Bergman gave a whole gold coin. He considered the offering a gold coin enough for ordinary people to live a month and was sure it would complete the daily quest, but a message from the secret system said the opposite. He wasted the people's taxes in vain, lost 500 experience points, and his level decreased. The shock hit immediately because the system considered donations to this church a waste, and anger flared. He recalled the truth. The church in this country was corrupt. Its actions were one of the main reasons for the kingdom's fall before the demons, and the loss of experience due to a donation to such a worthless organization infuriated him immensely. His rage caused another punishment. The system reported that for losing control over his emotions, another 50 experience points were deducted, and he realized in shock that even the thought of anger was costly. He clenched his fists, desperately trying to calm down while Katia, embarrassed by his sudden agitation, watched. He struggled to pull himself together. He told Katia that they were done here. He insisted they take a walk around the city, admitting that he needed a little rest before he completely lost self-control. As they walked through the square, a pleasant aroma suddenly captivated him. He stopped, inhaled, and aloud asked if it was the smell of chocolate. Sensation led them to the nearest shop. Rows and rows of incredibly appetizing treats were lined up in the window. He sighed. The system had exhausted him to the core. An uncontrollable craving for sweets surged, but he hesitated, fearing that his experience points would be deducted again. Deciding that enough was enough, he dismissed the thought and promised to deal with the consequences later, then decisively pointed and asked for one of everything. He handed the box to Kodia, explaining that it was a thank you for keeping him company. Embarrassed, she asked if she deserved it, but he insisted that she always takes care of him. She accepted. He noted how popular the shop had become. Her face lit up with pure joy, and she sincerely thanked him. The secret system instantly responded and announced that for making Kodia happy, he received 10 experience points, and additionally, completing the quest One Good Deed a Day meant that this quest and the prayer quest were considered completed. He gained 500 experience points and leveled up. He stood in surprise and disbelief, stunned that such a small gesture gave such a significant boost. His level jumped to -51. His confusion turned into suspicion. He could not understand the logic of this system. It seemed alien to him. Unfair verdicts felt more like a demonic trick than a divine command. After everything that happened in his past life, he was left with the question, what is expected of him now at all? Whether the system was created by God or a demon, he did not care. The next morning, he began to perform daily tasks despite his age. He greeted his maid Marie and immediately wondered what good deed to do today. He looked intently at Marie, the maid who had cared for him since infancy, and suddenly realized how young she had been. For now, he decided, the best thing was to follow the system's rules and work on raising his level. Putting his plan into action, he handed Marie the chocolate he had bought yesterday. Marie was breathless from the sudden gift. She faltered and whispered, "Thank you," wondering to herself why he was acting so strangely. He waited, but the system did not respond. This confused him. He recalled that a donation to the corrupt church had a negative result, while a gift to Katia, which she had not asked for, added experience, so he began to think that it all depended on whether you give something to the right person. Forming a new hypothesis, he decided the next attempt would be a donation to the city orphanage. He told Marie to arrange a visit the same day after classes and training, and the maid, surprised by the choice, confirmed. That afternoon, when he arrived at the children's shelter, he saw a well-kept yard and happy children playing. It seemed everything worked as it should here, a functional, well-organized institution. He approached the caretaker, handed over a coin, and asked to spend this generous donation on good food for the children. The woman gratefully accepted and promised to use the money well to feed the kids. The experiment was a success. A message from the seeker system showed 100 EXP for the donation and another 500 EXP for completing the daily prayer quests on a successful day. Clenching his fist and rejoicing, he realized the key. As long as his actions sincerely helped others, the system would reward him. He turned to the matron of the shelter with a confident smile. Now he definitely knew his path. He promised to continue supporting the children so that they would be happy, and asked to be informed of any needs, and the matron, filled with gratitude, thanked him warmly. Taking him at his word, she said that some children were cold and could use winter blankets. He gladly agreed and promised to deliver them the next day, and in his thoughts he already began to devise a plan. By supporting other aid institutions on his family's lands, he could constantly fulfill his daily tasks. But his simple plan immediately became complicated. At home, the maid Marie informed him of the arrival of his fencing teacher, and the rest of the servants handed him a pile of papers that needed to be signed. He felt the weight of responsibilities pressing down on him. Between studying, training, and having to manage the household instead of his absent parents, he was completely exhausted. He remembered the shelter's promise but decided that a personal visit from the son of the master so late would be bothersome, so to avoid disturbing them, he sent a servant with the blankets, confident that this would count as a daily task. Soon the servant reported that the messenger had returned and brought a letter of thanks from the shelter. But Salim received no notification from the system. He looked at the letter in surprise and asked himself whether a good deed is truly good if you do not do it yourself but only order it to be done. The consequences of this discovery settled in his mind. If personal actions are the key to a good deed, does that mean, he thought anxiously, that the opposite is also true? Can he commit evil through others without taking any part in it himself? To test the new theory, he called Marie and with a calm but firm expression gave her a strange order to break a branch from a nearby plant. Surprised, the maid hesitated for a moment before reluctantly agreeing to carry it out. System reacted instantly and harshly. A notification reported a loss of 10 EXP for deliberately damaging the plant. He froze in astonishment. The system held him responsible even for the actions of others, and just as he began to look for loopholes, an even harsher blow came: -100 EXP simply for thinking about cheating the system. He just stood there, unable to believe his eyes, watching his experience points fall. Stunned by the revelation, he let Marie go, saying that was all. The maid, enjoying the cozy warmth of the room, apologized and quickly left. He listened as Marie, laughing, noticed the chill in the servants' waiting room and remarked that although there should be some magical heater there, only such a young master as he could make the room truly cozy. She explained that unlike the heater in his room, powered by his enormous mana, the one in the vestibule worked at the expense of the servants' own limited supply, so it was much weaker and gave off only gentle warmth. He realized that mana servants could provide only a fraction of the heating compared to nobles. Marie said that although she met the requirements of a maid, their mana was primarily spent on work, and in the main estate, where smoke and soot were forbidden, even the rest rooms were heated by these weak magical devices. It dawned on him. He had never thought about the real limitations of the servants, so he decided to go and inspect the heater in the rest room himself. Having decided, he strode broadly towards the servants' rooms, while Marie and another maid watched in shock as he opened the door and exclaimed his title in surprise. He came across the lounge where the maids suspiciously looked and asked what he was doing there during their break. His suspicion was confirmed. The heater was barely receiving mana and hardly working, so closing his eyes he poured his mana into the device, filled it with energy, and asked if the room had become more comfortable now. His action was immediately noticed. A message appeared before him that he had shown kindness, received 100 EXP, and for completing 2 daily tasks received another 500 EXP, which caused him to level up. The maids rejoiced at the sudden warmth, and he quietly celebrated his success. He pondered the true meaning of kindness and concluded that if he continued to pour magic into the heating system daily, it would not only make people happy but probably count towards completing our quest. His thoughts did not cease. He understood that the system probably would not be so generous, yet he decided, even if he did not get EXP for it, he would still warm the room for them every night. This selfless determination was immediately rewarded. Another system noticed and gave him 300 experience for a sincere, selfless heart. He froze in amazement. It turned out that just as negative thoughts could cause loss of points, positive ones could earn them, and the most painful aspect of this system, he decided, was its power to limit even the most secret thoughts. His worried expression did not go unnoticed. Marie asked what was wrong, noticing that he had been like a different person all morning. He mentally agreed with her words, then looked at her seriously and asked, if she had to do one good deed every day, what would she do? He recalls his former self. Then he was 14, late autumn, ahead was admission to the academy next year, and he was constantly drowning in studies. According to his memories, he would lose his temper and shout at the servants whenever something displeased him. Marie admires his determination. She feels warm knowing he is trying to become more mature before the trip to the royal capital, while Salim silently begs the system not to punish him for the past and sincerely admits that shouting was wrong. When he asked her opinion about good deeds, Marie thoughtfully said that in her place she would pick up trash around the city, and said this with unexpected zeal. Salim declared that he would try it himself, and Marie panicked, quickly objecting that such behavior was unbecoming of a young lord, as she meant it as a task for herself. The social consequences of her idea suddenly became obvious to him. With horror he realized that if anyone found out that members of the ducal house performed such humiliating work, he would definitely be expelled from the family. A simple daily task turned into a complex social status problem. This problem leads his thoughts to a dark place. Maybe it would be easier to run away from home and just drift, not thinking about anything else. Before his eyes appears a future. He wants to stop a demon attack that destroys not only the Duke's home but the entire kingdom, and he again clearly remembers that simple hero who defeated it, and how their meager forces could not withstand the onslaught of the endless horde that eventually erased the kingdom from the map. He thinks that if he hides and lives alone, he can simply avoid the demon's temptations and not succumb to transformation. But he knows that this is a failed plan. His own escape will not stop the demon invasion. He remembers that it is approaching, and rotten corruption of the church will help it. Rejecting the idea of escape, he decides to find a way to save the kingdom from falling while remaining in his influential position. He returns to Marie, abandons monster hunting because it will hurt his points, and waves off donations, saying he has already done that, then asks her once again directly to suggest some good deed he could do every day. His insistence frightens Marie. She cannot think of anything. A system warning appears, 50 experience points deducted for scaring a woman. Embarrassed, Selim immediately apologizes and asks her not to worry. His sincere apology moves Marie to tears. She wonders how kind her young lord has become. Selim feels reproach in his heart, realizing how bad he must have been if such a small thing affected her so deeply. Not finding a suitable daily deed, Selim went to seek advice from the senior mentor who understood his situation. He proposed a bold idea to create magical tools for the disadvantaged with weak magic, and the mentor explained that her field is enchantment, which makes such devices, but developments for the poor are neglected due to low profits. She agreed that research should be directed there. Two observers froze in surprise. He listens as the mentor says that creating tools from others' perspectives is excellent training, but the boy looks overwhelmed at the very thought of daily inventions, and disappointment appears on the mentor's face. Though initially hesitant, he agrees that it sounds interesting, promises to think about it, and takes a quill to put his thoughts on paper. His mentor silently watches, pondering his next move. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He turns to the servant nearby and asks her about magical heating devices. She explains that in the servants' rooms they use ordinary firewood because only commoners with sufficient magical ability are hired in the castle service. To solve this need, he shows a newly created magic circle and says he reworked part of the formula from magical heating devices so that firewood burns more efficiently. Place the circle under the fireplace, it absorbs surrounding mana, and the firewood will burn almost twice as long without using the user's magical power. His teacher was deeply impressed and spoke enthusiastically about his incredible talent, thinking that if he chose enchantment magic, he could improve the lives of many people. This thought made the young lord reflect. He knew that nobles with such enormous magical power as his were primarily expected to fight magical beasts, as it was their duty. He reflects on harsh expectations. For the duke's son, everything is measured by battle and the ability to exterminate monsters and reclaim lands for people, so he rejects the idea of becoming a specialist in tool creation and leaves enchantment magic as a hobby, believing he must be strong. The teacher was simply enchanted by his work. She admired the amazingly simple and effective formula he created in one lesson. Despite her praise, the boy quietly regrets poor compatibility with the seeker system, but having gained her approval, decides to send the drawings to a craftsman. When he makes his choice, a message suddenly appears before him from the system. His experience points sharply jumped, and he was completely stunned by the unexpected John. The shock recedes, and in its place a new determination ignites. He knows the road ahead is hard, but he swears to keep going. He will follow the instructions of seeker systems, complete quests, and level up to overcome devilish temptations and avert the tragic future he remembers, paving the way to a happy ending. The young boy Selim Bergman wakes up in bed, a single tear running down his cheek. With a heavy heart, he realizes 6 days have passed, and that means he really has returned to the past. Scenes of the future he remembers flash in his mind. Although he is only 14 now, his memories are of a life cut short at 17 when he became a demon and died at the hand of a hero. After that death, his body disappeared and his soul was eternally devoured by demons. He was forced to watch as his kingdom crumbled into ruins for over 10 years, and every painful detail was burned into his memory, even though his soul should have been broken. He decides that this whole strange situation is connected to that mysterious system, Seeker, that appeared before him, a system that demands hardening the heart and resisting the demon's temptations, although he does not yet fully understand how it works. To avoid the terrible future he sees, he decides to heed the system's hints. He recalls that attempts to complete daily quests, donate to the church, and give gifts to the maid did not work, but donations to the local orphanage finally triggered a positive response and showed him a clear path. And so for several days he relentlessly donated to the orphanage, while nearby, standing guard, was the elven swordswoman Katia. He quickly, with bitter surprise, realized the system does not reward excessive generosity. As soon as the orphanage had enough money for maintenance, further gold donations simply stopped counting, but he discovered another thing. Giving useful magical devices that he himself developed still worked. His usual routine of helping is interrupted when Katia approaches him with a document and officially informs Salem Salmi that his practical training begins today with a monster hunting expedition, and she will accompany him as a mentor. He steps into a wide courtyard where a group of armed people has gathered. Katia stands nearby and he carefully scans the crowd, assuming his task is to find peasants in trouble. He thoughtfully considers his mission when the whole company simultaneously turns to him, their faces shining with impatience, and they cheerfully shout, "Good morning, Salem Sama." He said to his comrades, "Good morning," and encouraged them to give their best in today's practical training, reminding them that everyone needs to train diligently to pass the entrance exam to the academy together next year. Gilbert, one of the young nobles, grumbles to his best friend in glasses, "Valeria, why do they need a whole squad just for goblins?" He demands a real, serious challenge, and Valeria calmly replies that this expedition is not just about killing monsters. For nobles their age, participation itself and returning alive is part of the training. He warned Gilbert, if he does not take this seriously, he will regret it later because the entrance exams to the academy next year promise to be very tough competition. Valeria noted that many nobles adjust their admissions to coincide with the princess's year, and Gilbert replied that he already knows about this and proudly considers it an honor to be in the same year as Salim Sama. Alim quietly convinces himself of this. The year he plans to enter is indeed the same when the crown princess will arrive at the academy. He reflects on the flexible age requirements of the academy. Thanks to them, so many people can adjust their admission to the princess. A royal person whose combat skills, they say, are compared to the skill of the first king. Conversation emphasizes the fear of the upcoming competition. Everyone will have to strive for the highest results both in studies and in martial arts. Valerie Meldars, despite her family's status, worries about the martial arts exam, while Gilbert Benson from the house of Count Sana is anxious about the written part. While the wagon rumbled along the road, Salim carefully looked at his companions. From memories of the future, he knew that each of them could become part of his inner circle, and a failure from a past life surfaced in his memory. After entering the academy, he was overshadowed in battle by a commoner who was celebrated as a hero, and in leadership surpassed by the Marquis's daughter. He remembers how comrades outwardly showed respect, but behind his back he felt their tired sighs. Feeling this alienation, he began to break down and vent his anger, and gradually a chasm grew between him and those who once stood beside him. The clatter of the wagon brings him back to reality. He decides that one of the goals of the expedition is to unite those who will once stand side by side in battle, so he must follow the system's prompts and act wisely, but his thoughts are interrupted by Gilbert's complaint, again Cobalt. Valerie reproaches him. "Stop whining." He explains that it's nothing strange. In sparsely populated places, weak monsters often appear. In human lands, mana belongs to people, but in uninhabited areas where there is a lot of it, it spawns monsters, and this vividly shows the brutal struggle for territory. Gilbert remained unimpressed and grumbled that kobolds are just a warm-up for Salim, but suddenly the wagon stopped sharply. 3 kobolds blocked their path. Salim calmly said that Gilbert would be fine and ordered him to deal with them, saying it's better for everyone to gain combat experience. Frightened, Gilbert asked in horror if he was serious, but the order had already been given. As if strange system rules used and pushed him. When he ordered someone else to deal with the monsters, the system did not react, and this was completely unlike when he gave an extra order to break plant branches and lost points for it. It seems that due to Gilbert's lack of doubts in battle, Salim's experience was not affected. The thoughts did not subside, they became sharper and more focused. He still did not understand how this system grades, so by intuition it was better to minimize any losses. He suspected that a personal kill might be recorded as a penalty point, and he tried to avoid this as much as possible. It was then that Gilbert's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. He was grumbling that even kobolds were a real nuisance. Salim, seemingly ignoring the complaint, addressed the rest of the followers and announced that in the next skirmish 6 would fight all except him and Gilbert. The order caused a simultaneous surprised gasp from everyone. When they moved to the next skirmish, new threats burst out from the rustling bushes: horned wolves. Valeria noticed that they were stronger than kobolds, but was confident the group would manage. Salim looked at his young comrades, none of whom had yet entered the academy. He projected a voice filled with calming strength. "Stay calm and fight, I am watching you," and his people froze in admiration. Encouraged by his words, the comrades rushed into battle. The gap in the forest was filled with the clang of blades and the growls of beasts as 6 young warriors threw themselves into a chaotic hand-to-hand fight with a pack of horned wolves. After the swift battle, Gilbert approached him with a broad smile and exclaimed, "You are so kind, Salim Sama. praising the support Salim had given and emphasizing that he himself had not helped in the previous fight. Salim mentally noted that using supportive magic to help others defeat monsters caused no system reaction, just as he had expected. He glanced at his victorious followers now gathered around him. The first trial was behind, and he decided it was time to find out what would happen if he entered the fight personally. Soon during practice, they reached a neighboring village, standing at the entrance where they were met by a gray-haired woman who introduced herself as the elder. She sincerely thanked Lord Salim for coming personally, and he politely accepted her greeting and said that during their stay they would be under her care. Inside the village, the elder began to speak and told Salim about recent goblin appearances and that their settlement was found to the west of the village. The threat was serious. The group was led by a hobgoblin. Several of them could use magic. She pointed to a man in full plate armor, explaining that he was the only knight standing here, and although he usually managed local monsters with the villagers, this new danger was too great, so they had no choice but to ask for reinforcements. That night, beside her confirmed that asking for help was the right decision, admitting that he himself would not have managed, and the chief added that everything had become much easier thanks to their lord, Salim's father. Hearing praise for his father, Salim quietly realized the administration of the duchy territory works properly, and pride filled his chest. She reflects on his daily quest while Gilbert eagerly chews sweets. Salim hands him one and thanks him for the greeting, but Valenry intervenes. "Don't spoil your appetite for dinner," to which Gilbert sharply replies, "You seriously underestimate how much I can eat." Tension is now on the matter, and it becomes clear the magical oven is really broken. Two peasant women watch, and he, looking inside the oven, notices worn and faded runes on its magical plates. He likes this puzzle, making a quick adjustment. He smiles and says the oven should work again. When the repair was completed, a message appeared in his field of vision. He had completed daily tasks, leveled up to 45, and gained experience for repairing a magical tool. He exclaimed with delight, and the village elder, stunned, admitted she did not understand why the young lord himself was so eager to offer help. He smiles and says that nothing is needed. He is simply very interested in the magic of charms and was delighted to see such masterful work. His words moved the women to tears, and they promised to put their whole soul into preparing dinner to show deep gratitude. The magical tool is repaired and the daily task is completed. He thinks with relief that asking the village elder for more work was the right decision. His work is not yet finished. He walks along the perimeter of the village, inspects the damaged protective structures from monsters, notices simple earth and magical barriers that the villagers could probably repair over time, but decides it is better to fix them himself while he is here. In a flash of light, he releases magic and instantly restores the village's protective barrier. The system awards him another 100 experience points for the day. He freezes, reflecting on his past actions. Now it seems strange to him that he once desperately wandered the castle in search of good deeds and perhaps now understands true good hides in simple help to people in their everyday lives. The village elder approached, her eyes wide with surprise. He is up so early and has already repaired the wall. He turned to her and said he wanted to finish before the hunt because patching a few cracks is the work of a true lord who must protect his people. He stands awkwardly while the village elder wishes him well and says she is proud to be one of his people. When she prays for his success in hunting monsters, he mentally dismisses those words in his mind are only experience points from goblins. Arriving at the site, he and his squad surveyed the goblin camp, quickly assessing the enemy forces. The great hobgoblin chieftain, 2 goblin mages, and about 30 others. He made a plan on the fly. Sent the weaker ones to hold the goblins at the edges, ordered Gilbert to charge into the thick of the horde while the rest prevent anyone from escaping, and declared he would deal with the boss himself, to which Valérie agreed. The plan is ready. He activates the body enhancement spell and rushes straight at the hobgoblin, and when a goblin archer on a cliff aims, he instantly casts a freeze spell that neutralizes the threat, then finishes off another with an ice ball. A kill notification appears, but it also reports that he lost 100 experience points, which annoys him greatly. And gritting his teeth in frustration over the penalty points, he makes his way through the smaller goblins, his gaze firmly fixed on the main latecomer. A sudden attack catches the 2 goblin mages by surprise as they hastily raise their shield. He mockingly says that the time for reckoning has come, and with a single ice ball breaks their defense, destroying both casters. 2 more notifications appear, each confirming a kill, and again minus 100 points. He does not stop and launches an attack, sees a goblin with an open back and shoots another ice ball. The goblin falls instantly, but this time the system announces a stunning experience reduction of 1,000 points. A huge fine stops him in his tracks. He stands stunned and does not understand where those 1,000 points came from. Nearby, Valerie notices that the in-battle status seems to have disappeared, so the kill counts as a regular finishing off of a monster, and Selim realizes that just moments ago the penalty for each kill was only 100 points and wonders if he accidentally finished off monsters that were trying to flee. Finally, it dawns on him to test the new theory. He casts the freeze spell on another goblin who was approaching, and it froze in place. With this new understanding, he changes tactics. He returns to his comrades and praises their efforts, then releases a wide wave of freezing to immobilize the group of goblins. Seeing the helpless goblins, Gilbert shouts loudly to prevent the monsters from fleeing. His strategic turn immediately provokes reactions. Valerie raises a cry, gathering others and insisting that Selim left them easy prey and must not be let down. Gilbert Schurz calls him an exemplary commander. Katia gives a more critical assessment of another group member, noting that although the speed with which Selim casts spells is an amazing talent and far surpasses his swordsmanship, he needs to better use the sword skills she taught him. Selim eavesdrops and quietly reflects on her words. He felt his power. His magic would instantly freeze the entire horde of monsters. Even in memories of the future, he knew he surpassed the hero in casting speed and quantity of spells, but this time he consciously took the sword. Destroying them with magic would mean a great loss of experience points. Gaudia looks at him and immediately understands. He deliberately does not fight himself but instead trains his subordinates. Impressed by his insight, she listens as he confirms her suspicion. From now on, they will fight, and he will only observe and support them from the rear. Putting his new strategy into practice, he makes a forward gesture, releases a burst of magic, and loudly encourages his comrades, urging them on and throwing down the gauntlet. Show me that you can take down the goblins. After the battle, his squad gathered around him. They said they are now moving better than before and promise to give all their strength to support him. He hopes that next year in the royal capital they will continue to support him. Gilbert and the rest are burning with excitement, although Selim barely moved and put all the work on their shoulders, and Gilbert thinks to himself, are they really some kind of hidden fight fans? Later, talking with the village head, Selim uncovered a bitter truth. It turned out that killing living creatures, even harmful monsters, contradicts the philosophy of the Seeker and is punished by loss of experience points. So while he grows as a Seeker, he can no longer be proud of just his combat strength. He accepted this, deciding that the system defines good and evil by its own values, and they can only accept it. This makes it easier for him not to be too disappointed. This new realization opens his eyes to how important daily life in the village is. It seems that to achieve the goal to have at least one good day every day, one must engage in the lives of the people. At the family estate, Miss Marie tells him that his father has returned home, and Selim freezes in shock during this period before enrollment. His schedule is completely filled with study plans, so there is no time, and Marie simply cheerfully replies, "All right." He understands that his father, Duke Bergman, is almost never at the castle due to inspections and expeditions, so if he wants to talk to him, he must do it now. His thought is cut off by the father's stern voice, who asks sensible questions and wants to shorten the time of private lessons. Father listened, and Selim defiantly explained that he wants time to think for himself, not blindly obey teachers. He dismissed their lessons as nonsense, suitable only for show, and the Duke responded coldly and sharply. The cheeky boy was ordered to know his place and do as told, a reproach that stunned Selim. In response to this disobedience, the father struck back not with words but with magic. A fireball appeared, rushing straight at Lee, and the boy, filled with panic at the thought that priceless furniture would be destroyed, could not bear it. He could not watch this masterpiece being ruined, so he instantly created an icy wall barrier to save the room. Duke watched, fascinated. He recognized the Bergman barrier, a complex magic forged by their family for generations. Activating it so swiftly, a skill Selim should not have mastered at 14 years old, and he then understood that this ability was the result of memories of desperate training that Selim had already undergone. Selim begged his father to take the fight outside, shouting that furniture is more valuable than human lives. The Duke seemed to ignore this and said that the son turned out not to be such a blabbermouth. When he was about to strike again, suddenly a system message flashed in Selim's head. His careless thought cost him 100 experience points. He cursed himself mentally, convincing himself it was just a phrase, but the system did not forgive. Another message appeared and took away another 50 experience points for his bad attitude. The boy forced himself to calm down, wiping sweat from his forehead, and decided to focus on causing as little damage to the furniture as possible, thinking that his father had completely lost control. Across the room, the Duke, whose sword was wrapped in flames, challenged him to create the Bergman barrier again. The sight of his father triggered a sharp memory. In that future, he remembered, it was not this reckless man who succumbed to the demon's temptation and became the lord of demons, it was Salim himself. His father died a hero, fighting to protect his people from the very demon his son had become. Returning to the present, Salim sighed heavily. People were hard to understand, he thought, and again noticed part of the ice wall just as his father lunged forward. The effort was enormous. Salim felt a wave of exhaustion. Even with knowledge of the future, his 14-year-old body did not have the mana to maintain such a complex spell for long, and the father, watching this struggle, silently admitted to himself that the boy had clearly thought through the entire confrontation. Inside, this turned into loud laughter. The Duke praised Salim for carefully taking care of the documents nearby and added that from his mother, Erica, Salim inherited both appearance and character, and from his father only the voice. That the trial ended and he turned and left. He sighs with relief, a small knowing smile playing on his face. He thinks it's good that his father can be swayed by a show of force. Now that the clash is behind him, there is finally time to level up, and he decides that tomorrow he will go to the city and try to talk to people. Grateful that the strict mother is currently absent, this is a real step forward. On the noisy city street, Salim Bergman walks with confident steps, enjoying his secret stroll. He believes that his disguise as an ordinary passerby, unaccompanied and in simple clothes, will perfectly help him blend into the crowd. He smiles to himself with satisfaction. The secret mission succeeded. He recalls how he ordered the maid Marie not to let anyone into his room so that no one would notice how he slipped out. Suddenly, a semi-transparent screen materializes before him. On it is the daily task from the system. Do one good deed. He knows that as the heir of the Duke his actions are limited, but to complete the task he will have to interact with townspeople, because it is part of his desperate plan. He remembers his past life. At 17, he succumbed to the demon's temptation, became the lord of demons, and was eventually destroyed by a hero. Having spent 10 years as a disembodied soul, watching his kingdom fall apart, he strangely returned to the body of a 14-year-old. Then a mysterious system appeared, ordering him to level up as a seeker. Avoiding evil and strengthening his heart, he is determined to avoid that terrible future at any cost. With this determination, he realized that the only way forward is to follow the system's hints and level up. And when he saw an old woman barely carrying a heavy bucket of water, he saw his chance. He approached and offered to carry the load, but his sudden appearance frightened the woman, and she asked who he was. Accepted, he carries the bucket. The message confirms the daily quest is completed and grants him a large portion of experience. He understands that the real key is communication with commoners. And the woman, appreciating him and seeing that he is free, suggests that he clean her house. She does not wait for an answer and hands him a rag. When she asks what it is, from his blank look she instantly understands that he really does not know and mutters to herself, wondering what a sheltered life he must have led. He takes the unfamiliar object and looks at it closely. After a moment he concludes that the fabric part is meant for gently wiping dust off things. With a new but mistaken understanding, he lunges at the dust with sweeping strokes, and the room immediately fills with thick, choking clouds. She coughs, shouts irritably that she told him to be careful, and points to the dust in high places he cannot reach, and he, seeing this, says he will borrow the neighboring table. But instead of using the table to climb up, he begins carefully wiping the surface of the table itself with a fluffy brush, and the woman watches in complete astonishment, not understanding what he is doing. He addresses the older woman informally, asks for a spare pot. She sighs deeply, visibly annoyed, corrects him. "My name is Amanda, you don't address me like that," but although angrily, hands him a small pot. With a flourish, he pulls out his magically enhanced cleaning device, which gathered all the dust in the room into a neat pile on a rag and announced its completion, while Amanda watches, completely unimpressed by the spectacle. The dust settles neatly in the container. Amanda suddenly freezes in surprise and asks if he is some kind of master of magical tools. He waves his hand indifferently, says it's just a hobby, but she is convinced of his skill and insists that he come with her. She burst into the neighboring shop and called Johann. The mustached older gentleman warmly greeted Grandma Amanda, then asked with interest about the handsome man she had brought. Without any preamble, Amanda points to a large, old, rusty metal chest and demands that Salim fix it. He froze, staring at the neglected item, bewildered by such suddenness. He examines the machine, honestly admitting that he knows little about its insides, but instantly identifies the problem. The magical inscription has simply faded, and if you gather mana, make it vibrate, and amplify it, you can restore it. The device came to life. Amanda shouts excitedly that it is fixed. Johann sincerely thanks him and explains that the device is old and they cannot afford a replacement, and a message appears before Selim. He repaired the magical tool, gained 100 EXP, and leveled up. Excitement is off the charts, and Amanda exclaims that this calls for a celebration. She decides to organize a karaoke party, which hasn't happened for a long time, and immediately prepares to call the neighbors. Salem is completely puzzled by the word karaoke, as the shop fills with other elderly people, all anticipating the party. Another system message says that for restoring joy to the old man, he received an additional 500 EXP, and he just stands bewildered, looking at the commotion and thinking about the strange ways ordinary people entertain themselves. Later, another woman approaches Amanda's house and asks if everything is all right. Amanda turns to Salem and directly asks, "This is your third day here, or are you just a bored rich man with a strange hobby?" He denies it and openly says he is just trying to level up. He tried to explain that he aims to do one good deed every day. Amanda, still confused by his talk about leveling up, listened with a skeptical expression. She warned that today's task might be too difficult for a spoiled young master, but still asked what exactly he meant. Without answering him directly, Amanda led him to the registration table, where another woman sat. She questioned why Amanda had brought such a handsome boy. In a decisive voice, Amanda declared that Selim would take her place for the day and ordered the woman to register him. She shouted sternly, "Gutter cleaning." He considered the task today was community cleaning day, a hard duty for someone like Amanda who lives alone, and immediately saw in it the perfect chance to truly help the townspeople and simultaneously complete his daily task. So with renewed determination, he decided to do the job properly. Deciding to quickly finish the task, he summoned his earth magic. A powerful wave of clay burst from beneath the ground and instantly sucked all the silt and dirt from the gutters in one huge whirl, stunning the onlookers. Holding a huge ball of collected trash high in the air with his magic, he turned to the woman at registration and asked where to throw it. Embarrassed, she only pointed to the neighboring wasteland. He simply nodded and pushed the trash away, and immediately a message appeared: success. 100 EXP for cleaning the city and another 500 EXP for the daily task, so now he had 680 out of 1,000 to the current level. He returned to Amanda and handed her the prize for participation. The old woman looked at him stunned and noticed that his clothes were completely clean, and he explained that he had wrapped himself in a thin film to avoid getting dirty, and necessary precaution to hide his actions from his family. She sighed heavily and handed him a cookie from the prize package, insisting that he deserved it. He firmly refused, saying he was not hungry and that his business was done. It was time for him to go. His contemptuous attitude finally broke her patience. Crushing the cookie in her fist, she exploded with anger, shouting at the ungrateful brat, and her sudden outburst of rage left him completely stunned. He was always lost by the old woman's sudden anger. Holding out the cookie tray, he suddenly realized he simply did not know how to perform even one good deed a day. So he clearly needed to learn the manners of ordinary people and just obey her instructions, while Amanda was furious and demanded to know why he could not at least smile a little and try to make a simple gift. She continued the lecture, explaining that when someone does something for you, just accept it and say thank you. That's how it works. Taking her words to heart, he hesitantly bit the cookie, and to his surprise, it turned out to be quite tasty. He thoughtfully digested the new idea in his head, so saying thank you seemed important. He froze, wondering if it was some trick, some secret to get along with ordinary people. This realization changed his view of recent events. He helped Amanda clean the drain, but she never thanked him, only shouted for him to go home. Meanwhile, he remembered fixing leaking roofs and solving other villagers' problems, gradually gaining experience and leveling up. Now he understood that Amanda was a capable woman who had built strong relationships in her community. When the new year began, Selena Bergman, now 15 years old, became the unofficial handyman in the town. Cleaning came easily to him, and just after finishing work at Amanda's house, a series of notifications appeared before him. He gained experience, completed the daily good deed, and most surprisingly, rose from -1 all the way to level 2. He shouted a triumphant cry, filled with joy at finally escaping the negative levels, but his celebration was instantly cut short by Amanda's rough voice nearby, telling him he was too loud. Although her tone was prickly, she handed him an apple and suggested celebrating his luck. He took it and simply said, "Thank you." Amanda noticed that the one who always seemed to have his head in the clouds was finally here. He bit the apple, and a blissful smile blossomed on his face. It was like paradise. While he was eating, a level count was already spinning in his head. He was tracking experience, but did not expect this. He jumped from -1 to 2, completely skipping the first level. It seemed the threshold for leveling up had changed, and he realized that if it was easy now, it would become much harder later. He noticed an unread message in the system menu. He had acquired a new skill, to heal minor cuts and scratches. He thought to try it on himself, but knew his own powerful magic would instantly heal such a trifle, so to find out if this was different, he asked Amanda if she knew anyone with a small injury whom he could heal. She snorted and reminded him that skilled healers were few, but then she pondered and said that with him everything seemed possible. Before he could say anything, she sharply and deliberately ran a small knife across her palm in one motion, leaving a shallow cut. His eyes widened in shock when she showed the bleeding incision. "Look," she said calmly, "just a little one," and he only stammered, horrified at the thought that he had caused her injury. He looked confusedly at the bleeding hand. According to the system, he had the ability to heal, but unlike usual magic where he instinctively felt how to move mana, this new skill seemed foreign to him. Amanda urged him on, but he had no idea where to start. A transparent screen appeared before his eyes with a simple question: "Wound detected that can be healed. Do you want to heal it? Yes, no." He realized the system was processing the skill itself. He mentally agreed, and the cut on Amanda's hand instantly closed. Amanda calmly said it worked. She noted that his experience points had not increased at all. He guessed that healing wounds inflicted intentionally did not count, and then Amanda decisively proposed a solution: to find someone with natural injuries, because she knew a place. Children playing in the wasteland nearby were always covered in scratches. While they walked, he summoned his status screen. It read, "Selene Bergman, male, 15 years old, seeker, level 2, EXP to next level 90,300. He also saw new entries about MP and possession of the healing skill. System explanations were always vague, so he mentally decided to figure out what these numbers meant, and just at that moment Amanda announced their arrival. Their path led to a noisy group of children, one of whom noticed Amanda with Salim and teasingly mocked her as if she had found herself a handsome young man, for which a nearby older man sharply scolded the child not to say such nonsense. His attention was suddenly drawn to a small boy who stumbled and scratched his knee, and immediately the system prompted again there was another wound that could be healed. Salim approached the child and asked to see it, causing the other children to stare, and someone whispered that he was creepy. Salim accepted the prompt and the boy's wound instantly disappeared. The child looked down, stunned that it no longer hurt. A system message flashed on the screen. 100 experience points added, and the impressed boy looked up at Salim, called him a good older brother, and asked his name. The boy's innocent question suddenly made Salim realize that in 2 months beside Amanda she had never once asked his name. Amanda explained that it was customary first introduce yourself, then ask someone else's name, which Salim had never done. The boy picked up on this, saying that without a name it was awkward and one should choose a made-up one. Suddenly an idea struck him. His eyes shone with inspiration. He pointed to himself and exclaimed with new confidence, "It disappeared by." Announcing his new identity gone by, he turned to the other children and told all the wounded to show themselves, and they gladly rushed to him. Each time he healed someone, a message appeared. 100 EXP, and his level instantly jumped from 2 to 4, while Amanda watched for a few moments and decided it was time to go home. His efforts finally paid off. Looking at the status, he saw that now Selene Bergman was a 15-year-old seeker of level 4. His magical power MP was 920 out of a possible 7,691, and his healing skill had reached an impressive 97. Lying in bed, he finally found a moment to reflect and realized that MP was simply a numerical value of his magical power. The system itself applied the skills, spending this power just like any other magic, and it was through healing children that he finally discovered his ability to use these skills and truly understood their meaning. But this new understanding raised even more questions. He wondered, does the MP indicator mean his maximum magical power? Without any benchmarks, he had no chance to understand whether his current power was great or small. He thought about the practical application of power and assessed the effectiveness of magic. Healing his own minor wounds cost practically nothing, but the special skill to heal others turned out to be extremely inefficient. He recalled how quickly his MP was depleted just by lightly healing 10 people. Suddenly a troubling thought flashed in his mind. If healing such minor wounds on a large scale takes half of his maximum mana, then this skill is completely unsuitable for serious matters. The realization made him shudder and throw himself onto the bed, and when fatigue finally took over, he fell asleep. But even as sleep overcame him, his mind did not calm down. He went over options, imagined the worst-case scenario, but quickly decided to seek the answer himself. A new theory was born. Perhaps the key lies in the level of the healing skill. If he raises it, the magic might also become more effective, and in the last moment of clarity, he understood his path forward. The real trial would begin tomorrow. When Selene Bergman, whom the local children called Gambii, returned to check on them and ask if anyone was injured, The children happily replied that he had already healed everyone yesterday. The fact that he was a level 5 seeker and very skilled in healing was the best proof of his recent efforts. He became embarrassed noticing their concerned faces and honestly admitted that he came to test his skills. The children suspiciously asked if he was just trying to pretend to be good by looking for people to heal, and someone advised him to look in other places where they usually gathered. Confused, he listened as the children explained. Among ordinary children there are their own territories, they do not enter others, but Gone By can go wherever he wants. The fact that such rules operated here stunned him. Continuing to work among them, with each healing he received a tangible reward, experience points that pushed him further along his path. That evening in his room he quietly thought about progress. He had healed 10 children during the day and felt that with growing skill, mana was spent much more economically. He decided to focus on his path and hoped to discover even more useful healing abilities. This routine lasted several days. He made his rounds and steadily approached level 10. Suddenly, a hooded figure appeared before him and demanded to know if he was the one healing people in these parts. These figures were from the church, and the children murmured that this church only healed the rich. The woman at the head loudly declared that healing was the sacred art of the church, and since he was not a member, he was encroaching, so she invited him to join, offering a special baptism in the proper place among their ranks. It was instant and indisputable. "I refuse." In his soul, he mocked the very thought of joining an organization that took experience points for a simple donation. The women from the church behaved disdainfully, asking if he understood the power he was challenging. This could have revealed his true identity, the eldest son of a ducal family hiding behind a mask. But instead, his eyes lit up, he raised his hand and summoned a complex magical seal that released one powerful command. The sudden surge of power stunned the women. A chill hung in the air as they felt the incredible magical might emanating from him. One of them stammered, saying perhaps this was not the place for confrontation. Their arrogance was shattered completely. After the display of power, Selim watched as the children he had healed burst into joyful exclamations. Someone shouted how incredible it was, another said how good he felt. Selim breathed a sigh of relief, realizing he had resorted to magic and hoping he had not frightened them. The next day he was again among the children, and a gentle calm descended upon him. Selim's calm was broken when several figures in dark robes drove him into an alley. One of them said they were church envoys and that he must go silently with them. Selim immediately understood everything. He noticed they are in a back alley, away from prying eyes, all in black. It is clear they are hiding their faces, and that is enough for him to understand everything. He decides if they find out who he really is, he must make sure they do not spread it. With one deft move he utters a spell, shouting "Ice Barrier," and the agents froze in surprise. Then Selim approaches them and asks if they will take responsibility if something happens to him, a member of the Bergman family. The agents retreat. Somion recognized the face of the young master. Selim watches them go and thinks with relief that it was only a threat. He reasons that a real fight would have cost them experience points and decides that the church is determined to control everyone involved in healing. Later, during the treatment of another child, a notification appeared. He gained 100 experience points, rose to level 10, mastered a new skill, and received a new message. The child thanked him, slightly surprising him, and he decided to check the details later, pleased that he had reached level 10. Returning to the room, he thoughtfully considers the new skill, realizing that it only restores stamina and does not cure diseases, so it is difficult to use it effectively, and decides to follow the system's instructions, level up, and harden his mind to avoid the worst future he remembers. Suddenly, Amanda appears. Heard him. At first she exclaims that he can heal people, then clarifies, you can only help them restore stamina, and she sees that stamina is also important. After that, Selena bursts into Grandpa Johan's shop, apologizing for barging in. He addresses Amanda directly, recognizing her as the one who fixed his magical device, and asks if her granddaughter is sitting in the back room. Both Johan and Amanda are stunned by her sudden appearance and these questions. She rushes into the room, calls Zafi, but the elderly woman Amanda quickly silences him, explaining that her granddaughter has been feeling better for several days. From the bed, the weak young woman apologizes, too tired even to sit up, and a prompt appears before him offering to help restore stamina. He accepts the prompt and a faint glow envelops the room. Zafi gets up, confused, touches her face, and says with surprise how suddenly she feels much better. The onlookers froze in amazement. Johan anxiously asks if he can cure diseases, but Selim explains that his power only temporarily restores strength. A message confirms that he gained experience for this action. While Salim takes a sip from the mug, Johan explains, "This is Grelna disease, a common infection among the poor that affects those with weak resistance to magic." He says that Zafi is a poor child whom the man drives out as soon as she catches the disease, and she has no one left except him. Johan continues, his face grim, describing it as a cruel disease that slowly exhausts its victims to death. He says that although strong magic among common people is rare, it is their only protection, and he begs Salim will he continue to use his magic to ease his granddaughter's suffering. The shopkeeper's voice hoarsened with emotion, who refused payment, said he would sell the shop if necessary, and shouted that Zofi is their last joy in life. He calmly replies that he does not need money, explains that the treatment gives him experience and that is a sufficient reward for him. He smiles gently, saying that the most important thing is Amanda's happiness. Overwhelmed with emotion, Johan sincerely thanks him, his voice trembling with gratitude. The treatment continued in everyday life. Zafi was outside energetically shoveling snow. Amanda exclaimed, surprised and glad to see her so lively, and Zafi turned with a smile and said she hardly feels the disease all thanks to him. While they watch her, Selena explains to Amanda that his ability does not directly cure the disease, it only supports her stamina, allowing the body to fight the ailment itself. He says he has never been sick himself but assumes that nobles recover faster due to great magical power, and Amanda finds this logical. Suddenly, a new message appeared before his eyes. The disease was completely cured and he received 1,000 experience points. At that moment, Zafi triumphantly clenched his fist, joking whether he was really healed, and warmly thanked him. It turned out to be true. Selim looked at the system interface and confirmed that she was indeed fully healed. Zafi froze, her eyes wide open in disbelief and tears welling up, and from the doorway Amanda exclaimed in surprise, overhearing this amazing news. She ran out, shining with joy, sincerely thanked him, and promised to tell her grandfather about this miracle. When the girl left, Amanda explained to Selena that grandfather Johann Skob's was a usual meeting place for families of those suffering from grown disease, and Selena listened with a thoughtful expression on her face. He stepped out before the gathered families and simply explained the essence of his skill. It was endurance support, and whether a person recovers depended only on their own resilience. One of the men organizing the group nodded in understanding, said they would help, and suggested starting with the houses closest to the store. As they walked, Amanda confided in him. She told Zafi about his endurance support, but until that day hesitated to talk about it with others. She felt that if there was even the slightest chance of recovery, they had to give people that hope. He began working, going from one sick bed to another. With each person he helped, a wave of energy passed through him and he gained experience. Families watched, their faces glowing with hope. After the third patient, he felt a surge of strength. He leveled up and acquired a new skill, and then realized that even if salvation was not guaranteed, hope itself made a big difference. He thoughtfully turned the new skill over in his mind. Disease healing might not work due to immunity, but the very name shouted it must be tried immediately. There were still 3 patients left, and he began to worry about his magic reserves, so he decided to ask the last patient for permission to try. He continued to support the endurance of 2 more patients, gathering experience, but the description of the new skill did not cease in his mind. It supposedly instantly changes the patient's condition and exhausts their endurance. The wording sounded ominous, and he could hardly believe the system would give him a completely useless skill. After treating the last patient, a young woman named Laura, the result was immediate. She sat up in bed and clapped her hands excitedly from the sudden surge of energy, exclaiming that it was a miracle, which stunned her family. Her father rushed to her, filled with joy, and Laura suggested having tea. Selim quickly warned her not to overexert herself, reminding her that regaining strength did not mean full recovery, counted to himself how much magic he still had, and realized he could try the new skill, after which he announced he had a proposal. Then he told him that perhaps there was a way to cure her disease immediately. The words hung in the air. The father and daughter froze in stunned silence. The question came from Johan. Why hadn't he mentioned this when treating Zafi? Selim explained that he had just learned this technique through constant use of other abilities, and then sternly warned the method would cause rapid changes and quickly exhaust strength. It might be painful. He apologizes for the suddenness of the proposal and promises to return tomorrow to support her strength, but the young Laura firmly grits her teeth through the pain and resolutely says that she wants to recover as soon as possible. In response to his apology, she explains through tears that the illness hurt from the very beginning and she no longer wants to be a burden to her husband. He tries to comfort her by saying that they do not have to rush. Although he spoke reassuring words, the man still asks Salim if there really was a faster way to recover, even if it meant enduring more pain. Laura desperately caught his words. Confirmation instantly flashed in Salim's mind. The illness can be cured by manipulating immunity, and seeing their determination, he agreed to try. As soon as he begins, Laura cries out in pain and a stream of information floods his consciousness. An intense immune reaction drains her endurance and cripples the body, while the system itself combines his ability to support endurance and heal and orders him not to move more than 10 meters away from her. A sudden crisis throws the room into alarm. Her husband shouted, asking if everything would be all right. Old Amanda noticed the temperature had spiked and rushed to get something to cool her down, and Salim can only watch as the treatment takes place on his lips. Gritting his teeth and tormented by self-blame, he admits to himself that he wanted to test this skill, but now fears that he trusted the unknown system too much. The thought that it might be the work of the devil flashed through his mind, but he remembers how it always pushes towards good deeds. So he decides to resist temptation and change the future, even if now he just has to follow the system's instructions. The internal struggle is interrupted by Laura's husband. He says it is already late and fears that the castle will soon notice Salim's absence, but Salim knows he cannot leave her now. He stands by the bed. Deep anxiety grips him, a feeling he has not had since he survived a clash with a demon. Clenching his fist, he whispered Laura's name. Her husband notices his agitation, and Selena can do nothing but watch and pray that his magic will be enough, because the healing skill is fully controlled by the system and leaves him powerless to intervene. The tense night is replaced by morning. Suddenly Laura sharply sits up, apologizes for not letting everyone sleep, and cheerfully offers to prepare breakfast. Her sudden uplift surprises those present, and her husband, anxiously calling her name, asks if she is really okay. She spoke, and the final message confirmed it. The illness is completely cured. He received 1,000 experience points. He notices that she looks healthy, and Laura confirms only a little weak, but overall feels simply wonderful. He turns to leave, but Laura's father rushes forward, warmly apologizing for once doubting. The man tries to shove a bag of money into his hands, savings for the church, but Salim refuses, saying he has more than enough. After the treatment, he says he is heading back, quietly rejoicing that the girl has recovered and asking to be left alone. Father, with tears in his eyes, thanks again for saving Laura and insists that if Salim ever needs anything, he will do everything he can to help. Salim mentally says that he really needs nothing from another man, but still looks at the sincere peasant, thinks, and says that if a need arises, he will inform him. His decision is guided by the memory of someone's advice. If someone offers help, just accept it, and following that wisdom seems right to him. With a quiet, sincere smile, he formally accepts the promise, says, "All right, if I ever need something, I will ask." The father is filled with gratitude, and at that moment, a new heart begins to grow in the bond in his chest. Salim opens his eyes and sees his maid Mari, who is crying, wiping tears with a leaf. She calls out his name, thanking him for finally waking up, and he, still foggy from sleep, recognizes her and realizes it is already morning. Waking up, he again feels memories of yesterday's confrontation. His father, Duke Bergman, roared at him, demanded to know what he was doing, reproached him for lacking a sense of how to behave in the Duke's house, and Salim only stumbled over his words and whispered that he was helping people in the city. The memory of his father's anger painfully strikes his mind, but even more strongly affects his physical state. He sits down stunned and realizes that he probably did not sleep all night, using his skills to maintain the ice barrier. His magic is almost exhausted, and now he knows that he fainted from exhaustion after raising the barrier and withstanding his father's attacks. Alms leaned back on the pillows, turning his attention in the present moment to Mari. He asks if he caused her trouble, but she quickly reassures him everything is fine, she says, insisting that taking care of him is her job and begging him not to bow to anyone because of her position. The quiet, soothing words made him think. As the heir of the ducal family, he understood that it was time to stop hiding and acting secretly, because if he acted on his own and caused trouble, his guardian Mari and others could get into trouble and be punished. This new determination will soon be tested on the parade ground. His father, the Duke, stands before him and says that he has finally woken up. The Duke adds that if he had not forgiven Salim's mistake yesterday, the boy would be dead. He gives a second chance but clearly says to regain trust, Salim now has to show his strength. It is time to respond. With a battle cry, the Duke rushed forward, instantly closing the distance. The sudden attack forces Salim to rely on pure instinct and frantically dodge. He realizes that his father is using physical enhancement magic, so he must constantly maneuver and maintain the barrier because a direct confrontation, as before, will exhaust his already weak mana. The Duke roars for him to stop jumping and fight, emphasizing the demand by creating a huge fireball. The burning projectile rushes straight at him, and he is sure he will manage to dodge, but a terrible thought pierces him: there are servants in the castle. To protect them, he raises an icy wall barrier, knowing he can handle one fireball, but his magic points are already dangerously low, and he strains under the pressure of the attack, realizing that his depleted mana is no match for his father's power. Despite his dwindling strength reserves, the barrier held, and this did not go unnoticed. The Duke smirked and said that it was not bad at all, warned Salim not to relax because one wrong move could end in disaster, and then, to the boy's surprise, his father gave rare praise. "You have become strong, Salim." He admits that a few weeks ago a church messenger came to them and asked to take Salim away. Supposedly, he has the gift of healing magic. The Duke says he refused their rude and persistent offer, and when Salim did not return 2 nights in a row, he suspected that the church was the first place the boy might have gone, and Salim is stunned and does not understand how they could have thought to approach the Duke's estate. Instead of directly asking whether he can really use healing magic, Salim admits that he almost released a fireball at the front door. Embarrassed, he explains that he can only heal minor wounds and illnesses and insists that it is not magic but a healing skill, while inwardly complaining about the trouble created by the system and whispering curses at the church members. The Duke snorted with contempt and dismissed healing magic as vanity for the nobility. He accuses Salim of sneaking out of the palace just to please his own ego by listening to commoners and calls it hypocrisy. Salim understands that although his father's words are harsh, they probably reflect the opinion of many nobles. Healing magic is rare, heals only minor ailments, and for the high nobility who can heal themselves, it loses all value. He knows that his ambitions are much greater. The real goal is to gain experience by healing as many cases as possible, because he believes that with practice his skill will be able to heal even wounds too severe for natural recovery, something no mage in the entire country can do today. Determination in his eyes, Salim declares that as the firstborn of the ducal family he will achieve this someday. His father sees his confidence and says, "Do as you wish." There is no longer any point in restraining him, and when the Duke returns, he mentally considers that it might be a bluff, but if the system has not marked the boy's statement as a lie, then maybe it is really possible. Now that his tutoring schedule has changed, he can finally openly go to the city and sits at a table covered with books. Salim decides to study medicine and pharmacology from scratch because, recalling how he treated Laura, he realizes that although his healing skill works automatically through the system, blindly relying on it without his own knowledge is too dangerous. It turned out to be more difficult than they thought. Medicine is under the control of the church, so finding a teacher became a huge obstacle. He has no connections among the nobility or apothecaries, and when he asked for a mentor, he was categorically refused because he has no intention of joining the church. He decided that common people are the most vulnerable to diseases, so he needs to inquire in shops where the sick gather, and just then a loud bang sounds outside and cries are heard, and an idea comes to his mind. Ask Amanda, the apothecary, to teach him. He finds an old woman who reacts shockingly to his request. She snorted, saying Johan probably sent him. She says she used to be an apothecary but is now retired and wonders why he needs her help when he has already cured the disease of the Geraldine, which even she could not handle. Salim explains that although his skills can heal diseases, using them without the necessary knowledge is dangerous. Amanda, nodding in agreement, warns that pharmacology requires decades of dedicated work but admits that letting a person with such power go without mentorship would be a problem. Although she does not like to interfere, she reluctantly agrees to teach him what she can, but only while he is in the city and refuses to leave, and Salim, filled with joy, sincerely and warmly thanks her. She apologizes for the deception and officially introduces herself as Selin Bergman, while Amanda says is the eldest son of Duke Bergman, Lord of the region. She is not surprised, noting that most already guessed he was a high-ranking noble because of his huge mana. She adds that since people thought his name was Gone by Eye, they just treated him that way because commoners do not know proper etiquette for the nobility, and Selin then asks if she plans to continue calling him Gone by Eye now that she has become his student. Amanda agrees to make their master and student relationship official, but Salim says he prefers to continue being treated as Gandhi. He explains that he values the opportunity to observe how common people live and grow, and Amanda, a little surprised, smiles and says what a weirdo the Lord's son is. When everything is settled, Amanda asks where to start, and Salim enthusiastically says he wants to learn to heal diseases because he believes that wound healing and curing ailments follow the same rules as strengthening the body. Amanda thoughtfully admits that she has long been away from the business and does not know how many sick people are around now, so she decides to find patients herself. Later, Salim appears before his new followers and reports that 15 of them passed the recent entrance exam to the Royal First Magical Academy, so together with those already admitted, his retinue now numbers 22 people. This news throws Gilbert into a panic. He laments that they are losing to Louvier's faction. It has 24 members, while the Marquis Sarmiento's faction has only 16. He is shocked that more than half of their candidates failed, and Valerie didn't even try to take the exam. Selim calmly reassures his followers, tells them not to worry about the scores, and praises them for passing. His kind words move them, and in his thoughts he reflects that the strict military past of the Louvre family and their passion for hunting probably prepare family members well for difficult school exams, and he knows it is such disappointments and small cracks in the spirit that demons exploit. He draws attention to Valerie and Gilbert and says that the size of other noble factions no longer matters to him. He asks them for help and admits that he now knows how to heal the sick. He entrusts Valerie with scouting who is ill in the capital, explaining that he wants to hone his healing skills by treating as many patients as possible. Valerie eagerly agrees but secretly doubts Salim's true intentions and decides to be cautious. With this new directive, Salim finally managed to continue studying pharmacology under Amanda's guidance, and with the help of his assistants, Gilbert, full of new purpose, rallies the others and all willingly come to aid their lord, while Salim looks at them thoughtfully. The training began in earnest. He and Amanda side by side treated many patients, most often facing two ailments: Greln's disease, which affects those with weak magic and immunity, and Zaren's disease, which most often affects children. Amanda explains that Zerand is also called the Trial of 10, a rite of passage that every child must undergo, but with tragically high mortality. He arrived at the shelter where the disease outbreak raged, knelt by a child's bed and got to work. While the old director watched in admiration, he was stunned that Salim Sama, an aristocrat who had already helped them with money, was now personally treating patients, and a small, seemingly completely healthy girl peeked in from the nearby door. The little girl entered the room and sincerely asked if everyone would recover. The caregiver anxiously asked if it was safe for her there at all, but Salim reassured her and explained that if a child walks during an outbreak, it is either very strong magic or iron immunity. He had said earlier that some children, even noble ones, catch wounds but recover without showing any symptoms. He focused on the girl, thinking that if the disease is so widespread, then this child is probably infected too. A soft light slowly shone from his hand as he directed magic at her to check her condition. The girl gasped in amazement and suddenly exclaimed that her body had become incredibly light. Salim's diagnosis was confirmed, and as he expected, even without noticeable symptoms, the disease still exhausted her endurance. She impatiently asked if this meant they could all play together again. Salim smiled, assured her that the other children would soon feel better, as would she, and asked her to encourage them so they would recover faster, while another boy quietly murmured from the bed nearby that he was glad he was not the only one who didn't hurt, and that he really wanted to be with everyone. Salim was confused. It seemed strange to him to hear such from a child, as if the boy rather wished to suffer together with friends than be healthy alone. A little girl, sobbing, explained that one of the sick was her best friend and she just wanted her to recover faster so they could play together again. Salim knelt down and gently placed his hand on her head, promising that it would be so. Later, Salim took on another patient, a young man, and although he had seen many cases, some diseases simply do not respond to immune intervention. He managed to cure the skin irritation, but the persistent numbness in the leg remained. His current methods did not work on this disease, and the young man groaned into the void, asking if he would never recover. Suddenly, Amanda rushed in, shouting that there were to be no arguments, snatched a spoon with green juice and forced the protesting boy to swallow it. He choked and shouted that it was disgusting, and Amanda cut him off, saying she had to do it because the project had already been announced to everyone and she could not allow him to get sick now. Salim stood confused and asked what was going on. The young man admitted he felt better, and Amanda told Salim what was going on. That man had made a scene in a tavern trying to attract attention with a strange trick. He had eaten only buns for a whole year. She instructively said that when nutrition is disrupted, the human body becomes unstable and this causes a lot of problems, and Salim absorbed this new information, realizing that the world was full of strange diseases he still had to understand. Soon trouble struck him again. A confused woman with tears told that her husband, although she asked him not to, ate monster meat bought from a suspicious trader, and begged Celine to take a look because the matter was extremely serious. Approaching the bed, he saw a man lying unconscious. Amanda was already standing nearby and explained that although some monster meat can be eaten, other types cause deadly poisoning. The wife was sobbing, and Salim, realizing that his current abilities could not cure this disease, whispered Amanda's name in despair. Although everything looked hopeless, Amanda instantly sprang into action and told Celine that first of all they needed to help the man regain strength. She gave medicine for monster meat poisoning, honestly admitting that it would only slightly increase his chances of recovery, but better than nothing. As soon as the medicine took effect, a message appeared in his head. The disease could now be treated. He gasped in shock, realizing he could use his control over immunity to cure the man, and his sudden reaction completely confused Amanda and the wife. After successful treatment, the grateful couple sincerely explained how important what had happened was. The wife noted that although this medicine was known for its ability to neutralize toxins, many people still died after taking it, and only thanks to Salim's power did they now have proof that the medicine really helps remove poisons. He listened with a smile, understanding that he would have to study even harder to effectively combine medicine with his healing abilities. Then he aloud wondered what the active ingredient in Amanda's mixture was. Amanda enthusiastically explained that it was extracted from the poisonous glands of a frog-like monster, and showed a simple rule: poison is treated with poison. She added that such a monster is found only in the lands of Bergman, so this medicine is incredibly valuable in other regions, and noticing his interest, she offered to teach him how to prepare it before leaving for the capital. He smiled and remarked that she looked like a witch from a fairy tale, an image that suited her. Then he thought that having learned so much from Amanda, his own level was slowly but surely rising. The level up was quickly counted. Messages of congratulations appeared in his room. He reached level 30 and completed the training for beginners. The reward was a new bathing skill, and the main quest appeared. He reached level 50 to awaken the holy attribute and nullify the dark attribute. He ran his eyes over his growing list of skills. They were rare but hardly useful anywhere. He calculated that at this pace he would reach level 50 in about 3 months, which coincided with his life changing after entering the Royal Capital Academy. His determination was clear. To gain power to fight demons, he would have to level up even more. He stood in the grand hall of the estate with a small bouquet of roses in his hands, and all the maids gathered to say goodbye to him. Finally, the day of his departure had come. He addressed one of the maids and sincerely thanked her for taking such good care of him. She, through tears, wished the young master all the best, saying how happy she was to serve him. The children he had healed from a severe illness also spoke and thanked him for trusting them, but he modestly waved off their gratitude. While he was speaking, a young man named Nagi approached and handed him a single poppy. Nagi asked if he remembered an old promise and confessed that he had a request for him. Salim agreed without hesitation, promising to do everything he could. A crowd of well-wishers grew when Amanda and other villagers appeared, all with flowers. They thanked him for everything. The children he saved called him Your Majesty and praised him for healing everyone in the town, and he felt they were exaggerating a bit and thought to himself that people who heal without expecting anything in return are truly rare. His gaze fell on a small, slightly wilted flower that one of the children held out. The child asked if he had picked it in Amanda's garden for him, and Salim, with a sharp pain in his heart, realized how long that child had probably waited to give him that flower. Moved by their shared gratitude, he gathered all the flowers into a huge, bright bouquet, considered it a precious gift, and hoped it would not wither. Then a message about necessary support appeared, as if the system itself was celebrating his departure. With the bouquet in his hands, he returned to the crowd, thanked everyone, and announced, "I am leaving." At the first Academy of Magic of the Royal Capital, the new academic year begins with excitement. The Crown Princess herself is enrolling, so powerful nobles from all over the country send their children in hopes that they will become her close companions. Among the newcomers stands Salim Bergman alongside his peers, ready to start his academic life. The entrance ceremony finally ended. Gilbert sighs with relief, and Valerie already involuntarily wonders what will be served at the welcome party. She notices that Salim seems familiar with the academy and asks if he has been here before, to which Salim says that in this life he is here for the first time. But overall, this is his second enrollment. He retains memories of a future that has already happened. He recalled that terrible future. In the winter of his second year, he succumbed to the demon's temptation and became the Lord of Demons, but the hero killed him. His power destroyed the kingdom, his body turned into black mist, his soul was devoured for over 10 years, and when the last fragment almost disappeared, he woke up in a 14-year-old body, even before entering the academy. His second chance came with a new task. When he stepped into the royal capital, a mysterious system assigned him a mission to resist the temptation of the demon. Although he did not understand this, he now follows its hints and levels up to strengthen his will and harden his heart against the approaching darkness. To avert that fate, preparations unfolded a week before the entrance ceremony. He and others entering the academy arrived at the vast estate of the Houseburden family. Gilbert looked admiringly at the luxurious estate, while Selina waved it off, saying it was just the pride of the Duke, and urged his companions not to hold back, asking them to help train his healing skills. Valerie immediately agreed. Later at the estate, Valerie introduced him to two people: an old servant who had served the house for many years, and a woman from a merchant family who had connections at the Duke's court. They were asked to find patients, and Valerie warned that due to the church's great influence in the capital, treatment and training were better done quietly, at night. Salim thanked them for arranging everything. Although everything was planned secretly, the woman immediately informed him of an urgent matter. Stammering, she said they had already found someone in despair who needed help, even though it was still daytime. When Salim asked what it was about, she explained that she could not cure diseases but could at least examine the symptoms, and Salim, regardless of the time, decisively said they would leave immediately. When they set out, he recognized the ailment from his past life: food poisoning from infected monster meat, a disease with a high mortality rate. He recalled how he treated it on his lands on Amanda's advice, and knowing that poor peasants had no money for medicine, he decided to bring them the necessary drugs immediately. Their guide apologized to Nero for the carriages as they entered a semi-ruined part of the city, passing cracked walls and broken roofs. Salim noticed this was a poor district and even common people in the Duke's lands lived better, so he realized he must save his magic for healing. Patching buildings with earth magic would have to be postponed. He looks at the peasants who are suffering. Their moans of pain fill the cramped room. He immediately recognizes these symptoms. These are the same symptoms that tormented Amanda. In his previous life, he was indifferent to such places. But now he understands that the cracks in society that allowed the demon invasion were already there then. He counted only 7 people. The system confirmed the disease can be treated by manipulating immunity, and 7 is the maximum number of people he can process with his parallel action skill. Resolutely deciding to first give medicine to ease the symptoms, he prepares to activate the healing skill that allows treating several at once. Meanwhile, outside, the blonde princess stubbornly refuses to leave, insisting that since they are in the royal capital, Salim cannot be left unattended and must be properly guarded. Inside, Salim's voice reaches Hadija and Valerie. The treatment will take time, so they can stretch their legs if they get bored. He seems to sense their worries in advance and orders the steward to rotate the team of 22 attendants in turn so that no one gets exhausted, explaining that although the main duty of the Qadi is to protect him, Valerie still has to attend classes. Valerie nods and Salim adds that he will stay and also watch over him. After some time, the treatment ended. The peasants moved and whispered that they already felt better. Embarrassed, someone asked who he was and he introduced himself. Salim Bergman, heir of the Duke's house, adding that his servants had brought them porridge. Everyone froze speechless at this news. Their shock quickly turned into incredible gratitude. They couldn't believe that some guy had helped them. While eating, they exclaimed how divine the porridge was, soothing their exhausted stomachs. They were speechless from such kindness because they knew they had been forced by despair to eat spoiled food. Only the young guys talk about their situation, all from the same orphanage and trying together to start a small business. One of them admits it was hard, but with friends it was worth it. They made a mistake buying cheap meat and that became their downfall. They sincerely thanked Salim, and he quietly observes their endurance. Their gratitude fills the room. A wave of messages floods his vision. The system confirms that he healed all 7 people and gives 1,000 experience points for each healing. A sudden influx of 7,000 points instantly raises his level, and he holds his breath as a wave of power pierces him. Reflecting on this colossal experience gain, he realizes, if he gained this much every day, he would become unstoppable. His thoughts are interrupted by one of the guys pulling his coat and joyfully saying that everyone is fine, calling the young lord a good person. His attention shifted when he found himself at a noisy party. He hadn't been in such a crowd for a long time, and it became clear to him that from now on his life would turn into a world of politics and intrigue, the complete opposite of those simpler days when he could joke with Amana. He remembered the pride of his future self, the heir of the Duke's family, who instead of respect received only mockery and hatred. Now he understood that he must behave with restraint and caution, simply so that no one would look down on him. He resolutely decided not to allow that future to repeat and began to behave with the elegance of a true aristocrat. This barely noticeable change in his manners did not go unnoticed. A group of girls froze and began whispering among themselves as he passed by. The sudden attention of other students embarrassed him. Since the entrance ceremony, he had caught such looks that sharply differed from his memories. He thought that his former arrogance pushed people away, and the current softness which came with his other life attracted them. His gaze fell on Lisa Lott, the daughter of Viscount Belt, and he remembered that in the future she never once looked at him with such admiration. His thoughts were interrupted by the appearance of Crown Princess Rafaela. She entered with only 2 companions. Valerie Meldars joked about such a small retinue, but Salim corrected him. The princess hates large crowds and is indifferent to factions, although she leads the largest in the academy and has many people at her disposal. He approached and politely greeted her, introducing himself as Salim Bergman, the firstborn of his family, and said it was an honor for him to study at the academy alongside her. Princess Rafaela coldly replied that she looked forward to their time together, and at that moment he was struck by a chilling memory. Even in the future, when he had already become a demon, he still could not defeat her. His thoughts stopped on her origin. The current king had two daughters, Princess Rafaela and the younger Princess Emilia, and from an early age Rafaela was chosen as the heir to the throne because of her extraordinary magical power. When he looked at her now, she seemed fragile, barely a teenager, maybe about 15, because he remembered the future. She looked even younger than in his memories, and yet, despite this youth, it was said that her combat skills were not inferior to those of the very first king. He remembered that she never liked empty chatter, so he greeted her briefly. When he was about to leave, he looked at her face and saw only an empty, unreadable expression. Before he could walk away, another young woman approached the princess. He recognized Lady Gelsimana Darani. The duke's house had asked her family to be a bridge to the princess. Gelsimana cheerfully showered the princess with compliments and started talking about a popular novel. She noted that one of its characters strangely resembled Lord Bergman. But he just looked at them and sighed with relief. His introduction was finally over. Now he only had to wait for others to greet her. The thought of approaching the princess still seemed unthinkable, and he remembered that Gelsimina had always been kind to him, even in the future. He thought about the crown princess. Although her power was overwhelming, she stood quietly and indifferently to everyone, and in all skills, even in politics, he believed that the daughter of a marquis could be better. As if responding to his thoughts, a young woman with long dark hair approached him. Bowing gracefully, she introduced herself as Nadia Louiver, the eldest daughter of Marquis Louiver, and solemnly greeted Prince Selim Bergman. He recognized her immediately. She was the one rumored to be even more talented than the princess. He smiled in response and said he looked forward to spending the next 3 years with her at the academy. Nadia agreed, noting that House Louiver had sent 24 students from her territories, even more than his own house. But Salim's thoughts wandered to the future that only he remembered. In that future, after the capital fell to demons, House Louiver held out until the end and saved many lives, and he knew that then her command skills were unmatched, making her a key figure in the impending war. Her voice pulled him out of his thoughts and back to reality. She said that word of his reputation had already reached her tent. She knew about his work. He created magical tools for poor peasants and lately had been using healing magic to help the sick. She placed her hand on her heart, looked at him with sincere admiration, and said that his deeds were truly inspiring, confessing that she dreamed of someday being like him. Her knowledge stunned him for a moment. He had just learned healing magic and was secretly practicing it, and she already knew everything. He realized this was a small demonstration of the impressive intelligence network of an influential family. Nearby, Gilbert watched their interaction with Scalm and muttered how much Salim annoyed him. Suddenly someone called him by name. A stocky young man with a short haircut introduced himself as Mark, the third son of the famous Sarmiento family. Salim immediately recognized him because in his past life Mark was one of the few at the academy he truly got along with, and he smiled, thinking he should make the most of these 3 years. But Mark's expression suddenly became stern. He leaned closer, asked if they could ever be friends again, and added that he wanted Selena to better understand the church. This confused her. When Mark turned away and said to come talk only after repentance, Salim finally understood everything. Mark's uncle is the Archbishop of the capital, the highest church authority in the kingdom. The lands of Sarmiento bordered the Holy Kingdom and were under its strong influence. For a family with such deep connections, a person like him who heals with magic without being affiliated with the church was unacceptable, so friendship was impossible. Meanwhile, the companions reacted to the end of polite greetings. Gilbert Benson grumbled that those two influential families were a complete hassle, and Valerie Meldars, always serious, stated that they must unite to prove the superiority of their duke's family, and Salim noticed their enthusiasm. Standing aside, he thoughtfully pondered the essence of the welcome evening for freshmen. Aristocrats could shine with sophistication, but in reality, they were warriors protecting their lands by force, so it seemed he would have to tame their hot tempers. After that, he addressed his group and ordered, "Go and talk to everyone who catches your attention, regardless of territory or status." The gaze glided across the hall, and he knew the hero from the common folk was somewhere here, but the unspoken rule kept the nobles separate from the commoners. Wanted to approach and greet, but realized it would only attract unwanted attention. The thought triggered a sharp memorized face of the same hero who in another life defeated him after he became a demon. The thought jumped to the second key figure in the room, Nadia Louiver, the daughter of a great star. They understood how important they were. The hero's combat power and Nadia's ability to control both would be needed to withstand the approaching demonic threat. He decided to wait for the right moment to approach them, and suddenly a call sounded. It was Lisa Lotbelt. She noticed how much he had changed since their last meeting. Embarrassed, Salim asked when that was, and she replied last summer, and he mentally noted that a lot had happened to him since last autumn. That was when he began living his life again. At least a lot continued. She admitted she had heard about his recent deeds in the capital. Perhaps that was why his worldview had changed. Salim offered a thoughtful explanation. Those who use healing magic often become softer, and taking on such a role would help so that his rapid level increase would not look suspicious. She seemed to agree. I used that a year ago. He looked like a terrible villain from a bad show. Her behavior suddenly changed completely. She clenched her hands, blushed, and burst out with words about how gentle and refined he was now, like a hero from a romance novel. Her imagination ran wild, and Salim was left completely amazed by this sudden transformation. He froze in surprise. Was Lisa always like this? The woman he remembered from the future was cold, reserved, and mature, a true ideal of his, honestly. She continued talking, delighted to see this side in him, and warned that now other noble ladies would rush to him. He realized something shocking. Until now, he had completely misjudged people. Suddenly, he found himself the center of attention of a group of female students. Princess Raffala with sparkling eyes called him dreamy, others shyly asked if they could talk to him, and one girl excitedly pointed with her finger, nudging her friends to look. Surrounded by an unexpected crowd, he staggered inside. Such attention was completely new to him. In his previous life, nothing like this had happened, and he realized that school days would be much more chaotic than he had imagined. And behind his back, Lisa winked, joking about his popularity on the very first day, advising him not to rush, but slyly warned that other girls might take him away. First semester begins on the training field of the academy, and for Selim Bergman, this is a second chance in school life. He is determined. The task is to raise the level to 50, a system requirement to awaken his sacred property and not turn into a demon again, and meanwhile the instructor addresses the gathered and orders them to put on armor for the general fencing lesson. He immediately recognizes the structure of the lesson is exactly the same as before he turned back time. Nearby, a student briefly explains the rules of the upcoming duels. No magic to enhance the body, only swordsmanship skills. The armor is enchanted, he adds, so there is no need to worry about injuries. After the explanations, the instructor asks who wants the first fight, and without hesitation, Mark from the noble Sarmiento family raises his hand and smiles, volunteering, saying that it is a great honor for him to fight Lord Birdman. Feeling clear hostility from Mark, he agreed to the duel despite everything. It was going well, since the sword teacher Kadia said he relied too much on magic, and this was the perfect opportunity to finally truly practice with the sword. Students take positions opposite each other, so a draw. At the instructor's signal, the duel begins. The blades clashed. Mark smirked and said that at least Salim now knows how to parry, and Salim assessed their clash and realized that without magic their strength was almost equal. Conan relentlessly and mercilessly attacks. Mark Taunton asks how he will withstand the next blow. Selim struggles under the force of the strike and realizes that every accurate hit feels oppressively heavy. Due to his slender build and inability to use body-enhancing magic, he is clearly physically inferior. The barrage of blows is too strong to withstand. The instructor announces the end of the fight and declares Mark the winner. Selim is forced to drop to one knee, defeated, and Mark stands over him in triumph. A wide, malicious smile blooms on Mark's face. He privately celebrates the victory, savoring the feeling that he defeated the eldest son of some guy. Other students whisper among themselves, and Selim, still on the floor, raises his head in confusion. He does not understand what Mark is so proud of. After all, it was just a training skirmish where magic was forbidden. Sitting on the bench, he listened as his friend Gilbert Benson passionately declared, if someone challenges him again, Gilbert should be allowed to fight instead of him because, Gilbert argued, for the noble victory or defeat affects honor, so a skilled subordinate can be sent to fight upon challenge. His friend blazed with enthusiasm, eager to prove the strength of the Habsburg people for Selim's victory, but Valerie Malders expressed a different opinion. Although Gilbert was indeed skilled, he believed that you learn more by facing strong opponents, even if you lose, and Gilbert's enthusiasm seemed to deflate when he realized his proposal wouldn't work. He understood. His friends had hyped him up and encouraged him so much that he felt he had to live up to their expectations. He recalled a previous future where all those expectations turned into enormous pressure. A memory surfaced of his first duel with the hero, a defeat that nearly broke his mind. His thoughts instantly returned to the present. In this timeline, the academy was a place where all power was held by nobles, and a simple boy like the hero was barely noticed. Suddenly he realized, He had not seen that simple boy hero at all. The realization struck him it was his fault. In that other timeline, the hero attracted attention only because he defeated Salim, and this time Salim faced Mark. He, quietly apologizing to his friends in his thoughts, decided that he would have to suffer a humiliating defeat again. Unaware of this inner turmoil, Gilbert clenched his fist and vowed not to lose next time. 3 days later, the fencing instructor announced that there would also be sparring in that class and invited anyone who wanted to fight first to step forward. Mark Sarmiento immediately stepped up, sneering at Salim and offering a rematch. Gilbert was about to intervene, but Salim stopped him, thinking that fighting the same opponent again would be boring. His true intention was different. He had to challenge the hero, make him known and stronger so that when the demon finally attacked, they would not get into trouble. Losing twice in a row would offend his friends, but he was ready to pay that price. As he gathered his courage, a clear voice cut through the air and invited Prince Birdman to a duel. It was Princess Raffalash stood ready with a sword, her gaze unwavering and serious. While the princess waited for his response, Salim struggled inside with the choice. He dared not refuse the royal invitation, and giving the place to Gilbert was not an option either. The princess was famous for her stunning strength, and he decided that even a defeat by her would be less humiliating than a loss to Mark. So, addressing Gilbert, he brushed off his worries and stepped forward to accept the duel. Now he stood against her on the dueling field. Looking at her, he noticed her seemingly light and delicate build-in sword. Fighting this is usually a disadvantage, but he knew that in reality it was quite the opposite. The duel began instantly. She rushed with dazzling speed, and the pressure of her attack was so immense it seemed as if several blades were attacking him at once. He recognized this stunning power, the same one she had used against him in the previous timeline after he became a demon. He managed to parry the fierce strike. Their blades clashed and sparks flew. They froze face to face for a moment, and the force of the blow passed through their hands. Looking into her unwavering eyes, he heard one command: surrender. At that moment, he understood everything. Her stunning skill made her stature completely irrelevant. She was, without a doubt, the most battle-hardened person he had ever met. A week later, a new instructor in offensive magic appeared on the training field, introducing himself as Stein and showing special magical armor from the Institute of Magical Research, which could neutralize flying spells. The students buzzed, and Selena, to Gilbert's surprise, confirmed that Stein was his former private mentor. Stein announced that the rare armor would be distributed, but those ranked below Baron would only observe, after which he pointed at Selena and challenged him to prove his abilities. He approached Salim and said that even in their lands he often slacked off during magical training, expressing hope that at the Royal Academy Salim would finally take his studies seriously so as not to fall behind. Salim formally greeted his former mentor and noted that quite some time had passed since their last meeting. He noticed Stein's passive-aggressive tone to himself and recalled, as soon as his father gave permission, Stein's training sessions were immediately shortened. Earlier, he perceived those overly long sessions as dedication and believed it was the only way to become better, but now he saw everything quite differently. The opponent for that day, the second son of the Count, chosen by lot, turned out to be a young woman. After making sure everyone was in armor, she announced the start of the duels. Taking a stance, she released a fireball directly at Selena. The magical explosion quietly scattered over the shining ruins of his armor and caused no harm. He stood completely still and was not impressed by the spectacle, while the opponent looked admiringly at the power of the armor, and Gilbert loudly remarked that the other students were just standing and watching. They watched as the Marquis's daughter, Nadia Louiver, unleashed a barrage of magical attacks against Princess Rafaela and laughed joyfully, admiring her own display of power. The princess stood completely calm. The attack had no effect. Nadia laughed, saying that was to be expected from the princess, and from the side Salim noted that since this was training between skilled fighters, protective gear was unnecessary if they knew how to defend themselves. This place awakened a painful memory in him. In the previous timeline, he had caused a terrible event with this magical equipment. The memory sharpened. After losing a duel to the hero, he became obsessed, not wanting to be looked down upon for losing to a commoner, so he decided to prove his superiority in magic and released a powerful ice ball that caused panic and sent people searching for medical help. He believed Stein that one could go all out, and so he cast the spell at full strength without considering the true skills of the opponent. Because of this, the boy was left with a serious injury forever. In addition, he panicked and cruelly accused the wounded boy of weakness. This angered the hero, who rushed at him and beat him unconscious, and that incident became a truly traumatic memory. Shaking it off, Salim decided, "It's time to act slowly and thoughtfully," and began to form a controlled ice ball. His rival, a nervous student, was stunned by the protective magic of the provided armor Stein. She knew it reflected magic at such a level, but also understood against serious bells from high-ranking nobles with powerful mana, it would not hold. He observed the reaction with a wry smile. Of course, he restrained himself but decided to watch closely just in case. Laughing, he approached the others and invited someone to train with something truly powerful. Mark Sarmiento immediately responded to his challenge and began accumulating a huge amount of energy. With wild laughter, he announced that he would release the Earth Cannon, thinking that maybe this time he would make Salim look like the villain. When the spell began to form, Salim instantly rushed forward and stood in front of Gilbert, shielding him, a magical shield swirling around him, and he sternly ordered Mark to retreat, reminding him that the protective armor is not invulnerable. He sharply demands to know what she is planning, warning that a direct hit from her spell could cause a serious accident. The student disdainfully waves her hand and tells Prince Salim not to interfere, saying she was just about to show Mark a powerful spell and that the magical equipment he wears cannot fully repel attacks from high-ranking nobles. Stein orders him to retreat, belittling that armor as cheap trinkets sized for Salim, says the equipment is too fragile and that he still owes Mark a rematch for their sword duel. To end the dispute, he declares that he himself will fight the student and smash the armor to prove his point, and amused by his interference, she accepts the challenge. She confidently allows him to make the first strike, and he without hesitation releases the ice ball. The magic hits his own breastplate. The blow shakes him, and he mentally realizes that the force was such that he barely avoided damage to vital areas. His goal is simple: to show how fragile this armor really is. The armor cracks from the blow, the student freezes in shock, and Stein rushes forward shouting that it will no longer protect against Mark's magic. Salim looks at the broken pieces on the floor, full of regret, and quietly curses himself for ever trusting a person who made such defective equipment. The opponent laughs mockingly at him and admits that in one possible future she was captured during a rebellion that destroyed the kingdom, a hint at another timeline. She states that a simple wound is not enough to convince him of danger, prepares to unleash another cannon, and Salim with grim certainty understands. He does not intend to stop her assault. He quickly apologizes to Mark and asks him to endure what is to come. As soon as his opponent notices that he is casting a barrier spell, Salim launches a lightning-fast counterattack. An ice cutter, ice blades slice her arm and she screams in pain. She clenches her bleeding arm and waves it off, but it is just a cut that anyone from the Marquis family would heal, but Salim is stunned. On his screen, visible only to him, a message appears: he has been deducted 1,000 experience points for intentionally wounding someone. He is gripped by a cold realization. Hurting people and humiliating them, it was precisely because of such behavior that he was hated in his past life, and he fears that he is repeating the same mistakes again. While on the contrary, Gilbert Benson wildly praises him for beating the girl Sarmiento, insisting that she deserved it, and other students echo this opinion. He watches his subordinates and notices their hot temper. He knows that for them, especially for nobles, honor is measured by victory. They consider his act a justified retaliation for the humiliation Mark inflicted on him during the fencing lesson, and are confident that the debt has been paid. The damaged armor finally completely fell apart, and Stein froze in despair. He could not understand how what was considered reliable equipment failed. Selim explained that the magical power of high-ranking nobles is completely different, and outraged that Stein truly believed in the protection of such armor, handed the remains to other students, advising them to borrow it so as not to overestimate magical things from their own experience and avoid accidents, and Stein was left speechless, forced to admit that he underestimated the true power of the nobles. He stood over the fallen opponent, whom another student was already helping, expecting this to make the hero challenge him. But the training hall was silent. He realized that in another future he simply attacked someone, but here it was a real duel between nobles with history, and the hero, a commoner, had no grounds to interfere. When he realized this, his companion Gilbert promptly remarked that at least no one was seriously hurt. The halftime instructor Stein simply agreed that it was supposed to happen that way. Their words did not hit him. A new message appeared in his field of vision. He received 100 experience points for acting for the sake of others despite his own loss. A minute of stunned silence turned into inner rage. If the system now praises him, then why did it just take away 1,000 points? His sudden, irritated exclamation made his companions look at him in confusion, not guessing the conflicting forces of the game. At the academy, Gilbert Benson gladly talks about his new life in the capital, insisting that after the defeat of the Sarmiento faction, Salim Bergman's reputation as a mage became brilliant. Valerie Meldarsk picks up the thought, adding that his abilities have finally begun to be fairly evaluated, and Salim himself, recalling his first anxieties, admits that he was not sure about the outcome, but it seems his life at the academy is going calmly and well. His expression darkens. Inside, he rejects this thought. Everything is going completely wrong. 3 weeks have passed since enrollment, and the hero has not received any attention at all. In the previous future, the hero instantly became the center of attention at the academy. His fame began after the victory over him, but this time that victory did not happen. Sipping the drink, he fearfully turns over the consequences in his mind. If no one notices the hero, it will be a disaster in this academy. Students are taught only the simplest things if they are not in a faction, and advanced magic, passed down for generations among noble families, is not openly taught here, and to learn something about the true death, connections are needed. Do not look away from the future. The hero must quickly gain recognition, join a respected faction, and find himself in a place where his talents will flourish, because he needs to become stronger to withstand the demons that will one day threaten everyone. He hesitates, not knowing what to do next. He could approach the hero directly, but restrains himself because he understands that since the capital residents ignore the hero, any direct intervention by him, as a member of the Queen's faction, will be perceived as political interference. He is pondering the options, and at that moment Gilbert and Valerie approach. Gilbert asks what is going on, but Selena barely hears his question. His attention is fixed on the hero in the distance, and he suddenly realizes that the painful expression on the hero's face is not hatred, as he thought, but something completely different. He was mistaken in his assessment of the situation. The conversation is interrupted. Suddenly, a commotion rises from the courtyard, and the sounds of a fight clearly spread through the air. Shouting in shock, he recognizes the scene as a mob lynching. Salim sees the hero surrounded, defiantly dodging every blow from the attackers. He thinks this is a chance to intervene and help, but his resolve melts when he sees the attackers begin to chant, preparing a synchronized magical attack. Realizing it has gone too far, he shouts with them to stop. But before anyone can do anything, the hero unleashes his power. With one sharp gesture, he creates a powerful gust of wind magic, and with one decisive surge throws the attackers back, and Salim and the rest of the onlookers freeze, stunned by the silence from this unexpected display of power. He turns and leaves, having shown his strength, leaving the spectators stunned. Salim Berman shouts, calling him a hero and lamenting that he leaves immediately after they finally met, while other students, including Princess Rafaela and Lady Luover, look on skeptically. As the hero walks away, he is struck by the sudden change in Salim. The young noble laughs joyfully and exclaims what an incredible spectacle it was, and the hero wonders why is Salim the only one who does not even try to defeat him. Gilbert and Valerie catch up to him, asking him to wait. Gilbert grumbles that he has never before seen such a smile on Salim's face, and Salim himself, with a broad smile, says his research shows that heroes should be lively, and he wants to test his strength against this one, boldly promising that if he wins, he will make the hero smile. He waved off the offer without even thinking, saying outright that he is not interested. Gilbert exploded with rage at the disdain for Salim, heir to the Duchy of Bergman, and Salim just laughed, as if amused by the straightforward audacity of the heroes. His gaze sharpens as he addresses the young noble by his full name and directly asks if Salim was treated for food poisoning just 3 weeks ago, and this question wipes the smile from Salim's face, leaving him stunned and making him wonder where the hero got such information. The hero recalled the whispering of the students. They spoke about the Duke's son as if he came straight out of some famous story. Then he reveals what the connection is. Those who treated Salim turned out to be his own childhood friends. He looks at the young noble and asks for confirmation. The revelation hits Salim. He finally understands that he owes the hero and declares that he will agree to a duel if that is what the hero wants. To himself, he notes that the seeker's actions turned out to be useful. When everything escalated, Princess Rafaela intervened, touching the hero's shoulder. She indicated that that corner of the training ground was a private area of the Bergman family and asked their group to clear the space for the duel, to which he readily agreed. As they prepared to face each other, the young nobleman solemnly introduced himself again. Selin Bergman, and the hero responded in kind. Leo, an orphan without a surname. He tells the hero to call him Salim and announces that their duel begins no rules, with permission for magic and swords. He urges Leo to attack as he wishes and acknowledges him as the future hero who will defeat the Demon King. Leo simply agrees. The duel explodes in a burst of movement. Leo rushes forward, his blade meets Salim's blade in a shower of sparks, and a magical circle emerges around him. When their eyes lock, Salim mentally feels a strange sensation. He is standing opposite a man who defeated his future self. Salim easily parries the strike and raises his hand to stop the exchange of blows. The spectators, even Gilbert, whisper with admiration, noticing his calm and that he allows his opponent to attack freely, while Salim thinks to himself that he already has more than enough room to maneuver. The swords are still crossed. He admits that the hero is truly powerful and explains, Neither of them will deliver a fatal wound to the other because they trust and respect each other's skills, so they can fight with such confidence. Leo considers the situation. Before him is the 15-year-old version of the one who will become the Demon King. Recalling his victory at 17, he feels the advantage of experience, but Selim is confident otherwise and already releases an ice ball. He barely dodges the ice ball, a thin streak of blood appears on his hand. Selim smirks and says not to hold back. He knows Leo's true power well and encourages him to use his mid-level wind magic without hesitation. In response, Leo raises his hand and releases a powerful wind vortex. Selim's face lights up with pure admiration. He urges him to perform even more spectacular spells and moves so everyone can see his talent, and the audience freezes, stunned. The performance leaves the audience in a storm of excitement. Gilbert exclaims with admiration at Leo's incredible power. Valerie asks in surprise where he came from, a commoner from the royal care house, and without any known faction, Nadia laughs, seeing in him a future military asset for the Duke's house, and Princess Rafla quietly notes how interesting her first opponent is. When the duel ended, Gilbert approached Leo and apologized on behalf of Selena, explaining that when noble or royal persons notice someone strong, they immediately want to recruit him, and the Duke's house is no exception. They also want to secure such a talented fighter and offer favorable terms. Leo firmly replied that he does not intend to leave the land where he was born and raised. Selim intervened, asking friends not to insist and warning that forceful recruitment is a bad idea. Making an enemy out of the hero will only bring trouble. He listened as Leo explained that in his current state he was not yet a threat. Leo added that his attack, though strong, was simple and could be withstood, but if he combined the wind he had just used with fire magic, everything could change. This possibility intrigued him. Selim's eyes lit up. He reached out to Leo, challenged him to try it right here and now, and exclaimed that Leo could become even stronger. Leo accepted the challenge and his face tightened with determination. Around his outstretched hands swirled a vortex of powerful energy. The air sparkled with growing strength. Gilbert watched with surprise and noted that Leo was able to replicate the magic after seeing it only once, and Selim mentally felt that what he saw confused him. A desire to have such power on his side flared up in him, and his attitude toward everything changed. Then Selim turned to Leo and said that the matter was not yet finished. He asked if Leo knew that a hero has an extraordinary ability to copy others' magic, warning that this very power would later bring him serious problems, and Leo only responded with a questioning look. Other nobles intervened, and Gilbert enthusiastically suggested that if the Duchy of Bergman made a contract with Leo, he could use their family magic and become a great advantage. Leo found the whole proposal boring, but Gilbert did not back down, explaining that in noble society it was considered rude not to offer such wonderful magic. Taking the initiative, Selim entrusted Valeria to write a letter to the Cole family on behalf of Leo, and Valeria immediately agreed. Selim explained to Leo that even for someone without a title, sending a letter was a simple formality and a much better option than receiving an official inevitable summons. He continued, warning Leo that there were unwritten rules in the academy that he did not know. He recalled problems in the court and reminded him that the first magic academy was the territory of the nobility, so as a commoner Leo would inevitably face contempt and trials, especially since the royal family was not to be trusted. Selim advised if Leo was going to enroll, he should have at least one official document in his name, and he promised that if Leo ever wanted to use magic, Selim and his comrades would come to him to confirm it. His friends stood behind him, and Selim solemnly asked Leo to become his follower, urging him to rely on their support, while expectant looks of noble students gathered around. Leo lowered his eyes for a moment, then met Selim's gaze with a faint smile and quietly replied with a simple "thank you," agreeing. When Leo agreed to the new arrangement, Selim watched him and a message appeared in his sight. He helped a lonely classmate 200 experience, total 220 out of 3600 to level 35. Satisfied, Selim considered this a good step toward deepening their friendship and pondered Leo's loneliness, wondering if the Duke's system had made him a recluse. This thought touched him personally. Selim recalled how once his own pride was wounded by the burden of being a commoner hero, but he knew Leo was not so simple. At that moment in the academy where nobles ruled, he had to endure incredible hardships, and Selim felt a glimpse of a true hero, gladly accepting him into his circle. In the courtyard of the academy, Gilbert Benson with a note of curiosity notices Leo's recent arrival at the Bergman ducal house and emphasizes that he and young Master Selim are both 15. Valerie Meldar indignantly intervenes. How can a peer of Selim be suddenly placed at such an age? Gilbert objects that Leo is a commoner hero from the capital, and his appearance is a chance for the academy to stand out. And while the servants discuss this, Salim quietly decides to only observe the newcomer from afar, not interfering. Meanwhile, he is told that he will definitely become very useful to the country in the future and must strive to become stronger wherever he is assigned. He listens with determination in his eyes, understanding that the hero's strength is needed to fight the demons that will one day threaten everyone. The news about how he forces people to serve weighed heavily on Salim's thoughts. He saw how hastily the talented were grabbed, and he knew it would become a disaster if they were not properly trained after coercion. Catching the silent order of the master, Valerie clenched his hands in a gesture of fervent understanding, and resolutely said that he would watch over Leo as ordered, without unnecessary interference, and would immediately arrange a carriage. Walking down the stone corridor, Salim told those walking beside him that he would continue studying pharmacology outside the campus, and added that Amanda, an elder from his region, had given him a letter of recommendation to the apothecary in the capital. Valerie admits that he knows nothing about pharmacology, and Gilbert enthusiastically offers to accompany Salim. Salim says that he has already entrusted Valerie to take care of the carriage and asks them to travel separately. Gilbert protests, calling himself Salim's right hand, but Valerie calmly says that he will be the one accompanying the master during this trip outside the campus. His persistent desire to be present surfaced in Salim's memory. He recalled how once he went in a large escort, and it seemed to him that each of them looked at him with suspicion or contempt. Gilbert admits, although the heir needs an escort, Salim was too closely surrounded in the past, so now, to avoid burdening the guards, he often tries to go alone, and Valerie catches himself thinking what a strange thing it is. An escort and yet not really. Gilbert suggests taking more people for other occasions. Valerie agrees, but Salim hesitates. He feels that coming to the homes of ordinary people with a large retinue would be an unnecessary hassle and would cause them problems. Salim stands confused and thoughtful. Gilbert notices their transport and loudly calls to have it stopped, and Valerie points to the parking lot, as if urging them to go there. In front of the majestic First Academy of Magic, near the waiting carriage, stands Selin Bergman and watches as his companions Gilbert and Valerie talk with a young aristocrat. He sadly reflects that in this world students are expected to stand up for themselves, that inequality in status and strength is a common thing, but imposing one's will on others is wrong, and this is exactly connected to why his country stands on the brink of collapse. Suddenly his servant pushed the young woman into the carriage, and the coachman urged them on, calling to hurry. Seeing this, Salim rushed to them and, demanding explanations, realized with cold certainty that they were trying to escape. At their panic and attempt to flee, he calmly raised his hand from the ground, exploded a huge wall of sharp ice, instantly enveloping the carriage and horses and stopping them in place. Salim, with a slight smile, says that he appreciates their concern for his safety, but assures them, as long as there is a reserve of magic in the academy, they will not die, and adds that there is a deadly weakness in their opponent's system. When the ice shattered into pieces, a stunned Valerie shouted Salim's name. Not understanding what had happened, Salim gathered himself and instantly ordered someone to call the academy people to deal with those who had done this. Ignoring his companions, Salim fully focused on the young woman, gently took her hand, his face softened, and he quietly asked if she was all right. She raised her eyes to him, wide open and filled with tears. She was clearly distressed, tightly squeezing his hand, trying to compose herself. He recognized her Laura Panetti and suddenly realized that she could not walk. Nearby, Gilbert blushed with embarrassment, realizing that his plan to send Valerie to the staff room had failed. Gilbert ran up, panicking as he tried to explain that he was only worried about Salim's safety, and Salim asked him to calm down and said that Laura was too upset to talk right now. While he was thinking about what to do next, a man in a top hat ran up to them, calling his young lady, anxiously asked if she was unharmed, then turned to Salim, apologized for the intrusion, and said he was from her service. The man explained that this woman was Lady Laura, daughter of Viscalponte. He had been looking for her after she did not appear at the place where she was supposed to be picked up. She had stepped out of the carriage to look around and finally noted what a huge parking lot the academy had. Salim Bergman looked coldly, and Gilbert stubbornly insisted that he could not just leave Laura Panetti, swearing to escort her home himself. Salim pronounced his subordinate's name so that there was no doubt. Everyone knew that only high nobles could park their carriages near the academy entrance, a privilege not granted to those with conditional status, and Laura had been driven into a secluded corner by someone with ill intent. The steward of the Panetti family, reacting instantly, ordered the servants to contact Apothecary Valerie and Lady Laura's guide, explaining that she had been pushed away and mocked at the academy, and added with pain, "In our worlds, the weak are left unprotected, they become prey for the stronger. Salim admitted to himself. He intervened only because he saw Gilbert usually a troublemaker, but this time strangely caring towards Laura. Noticing the feelings of his subordinates, he decided to follow them and thus ended up at the scene, later recalling that in the future Gilbert became an excellent subordinate whose cheerful nature only enhanced his reputation. His thoughts were interrupted by Valerie, who approached and reported about the Panetti family. He explained that their merchant house had bought a quasi-baronial title from the king and owned numerous shops. Salim did not know about them. He had never dealt with this family. Valerie concluded that some other reason must be at play here. After considering this, Selim could not imagine that some quasi-baron person would send their daughter to the academy for established nobility. He considered it reckless. Exposing a defenseless girl to a crowd of arrogant and cruel nobles was sheer madness. Indeed, Laura's mother weeps, regretting that she should not have allowed her daughter to enter the first academy. Her husband tries to comfort her, saying that he asked the court ladies of the Durrani Palace to watch over Laura to prevent such a thing. But this request was simply ignored. At the academy, Lady Gelsomon and Durante did not even acknowledge Laura, deliberately averting their gazes. Because of this, Laura found herself completely isolated. Salim recalls his communication with Lady Gelsomina. On the day of the entrance ceremony, she asked him to act as an intermediary before the princess, saying that the Bergman family also serves in the palace, and he then, knowing in advance, understood that she was two-faced. His face darkened with this realization. He thought about the hero Leo and decided that the people around Crown Princess Rafaela were a real mess. She sorrowfully contemplates the fate of the heir to the throne. She should be raised in the best environment, but the current king deliberately nurtures only her strength, believes that by the age of 18 she will have no choice but to become a fighting puppet, a mere instrument defined by her title. In Panetti's house, Laura's mother pleadingly asks her husband, her voice gripped by anxiety. She insists that Laura leave the academy. Continuing her studies is too dangerous, and it will be better for her if it happens quickly. Her husband remains sullen and says that the right to enter in the same year as the crown princess is a privilege that everyone hunts for, and he fears that if they give up such a valuable place, other noble families will inevitably turn against them. Somewhere nearby, Selim Bergman is eavesdropping on how the situation unfolds, and his face Titench understands this is a serious problem, so he decides to first talk to his faction. He gathers allies and asks to look after Laura Panetti. Gilbert, as always passionate, asks how he can help, but Selim brushes off his enthusiasm, saying that although the intention is sincere, he is unlikely to be of use in this matter, and a memory surfaces in Selim's mind of how this problem had once unfolded before. He did not make the decision to protect Laura lightly. It was born from his knowledge of the future. He knew that by openly becoming her shield, the boys who mocked her would be forced to stop, and only he could stop that insidious bullying. Salim's main goal is to support Leo from the shadows, so he has to gather talented people for a nobleman. This is a natural path, and Laura has no outstanding gifts, just a beautiful low-status student, so why would he take such steps for her? In his memories, he sees how others perceived his actions. Gelsomina Durrani gossiped with another student, confirming that she came to the academy seeking a high-status partner. Laura, unable to match Salim in either status or abilities, could never become his fiancée, and his lukewarm sympathy led to unforeseen consequences. The result was a storm of shameful gossip. Unable to withstand the slanders, Laura was forced to leave the academy, and the Panetti family, having incurred the wrath of the nobility, found themselves on the brink of ruin. Returning to the present, Salim recalled how Gilbert later searched for Laura and learned that she and her family had moved to a village, and how this incident split their relationship, cooling his relations with the subordinate who was once so cheerful and straightforward. Now he realizes how clumsy his previous response was, and to do the right thing he needs a female assistant. He approaches Lisa Lotbelt, says that his group is mostly male, and asks her, as a second-year student, to share her perspective and advice on how to deal with the carefully planned bullying of Laura. He points to Gilbert Benson. He shouts loudly that Laura is his and warns everyone to stay away. Then Lisa Lot turns back to Salim and sharply asks if he considers his public display a solution. He calmly brushed off the idea, calling it a clumsy trick, explaining that he has no personal interest in interfering in Laura's life, because any careless remark from him would only ruin her life and intensify the bullying, and further clarified that as a candidate for Hood connected with the Seeker system, he is definitely not her lover. As if completely misunderstanding his serious words, she sighs dreamily, her thoughts drifting to the plot of a popular novel. A handsome duke rescues a girl in trouble, love that disregards social status, and she aloud asks if she has accidentally fallen into such a romantic fairy tale. The romantic fantasy intensifies, and blushing, she covers her face with her hands. She exclaims that she is swooning and cannot endure when such words come from the Duke. He carefully watches her reaction and mentally notes that the reserved woman he knows from the future shows no such signs, and when he realizes that for Laura this is a serious problem that could change her life, he decides that he must make Lisa Lott finally take real action. To pull her out of her thoughts, he firmly takes her by the shoulders and with a sharp look forces her to seriously think about the situation. He leans closer, feeling that awkward closeness, but insists that she listen. He apologizes for pressuring her but explains he needs her help to come up with the right strategy. Without her, he cannot move forward. She stammers, saying his name, a blush spreading across her face as he steps back, suddenly realizing how close he was. Gathering herself, Lisa asks for more details. She suggests that if the Duke does not want to act himself, he has the perfect boss who could take care of it. The question is about this boss. Lisa Lott clearly explains it is about a woman of his rank with an authoritative demeanor, Lady Nadia Louiver. His thoughts turned to Nadia Louiver. He was sure, if he directly asked her for help, she would not refuse. He remembered her from the future as a great heroine who tirelessly fought demons and saved many people thanks to her knowledge. He felt that she would definitely agree to help Laura. He often told Lisa that he had previously suffered defeats because he took on tasks he could not handle alone. Now he realized there was another way. It was better to ask for help from someone who could succeed where he might fail, and turning to his assistant, he gave a direct order. Valerie, arrange a meeting with Lady Louiver for tomorrow after classes. Valerie bowed her head, understood, and agreed. As soon as the command was given, Lisa Lott's thoughts spun. Lady Louiver seemed a bit scary to her, and she was not good at dealing with her, but despite doubts, everything was decided. A meeting with a very important person appeared in the schedule. Noticing her thoughtful expression, Salim simply said, "It's about saving someone." When night fell over the luxurious estate, he only hoped that his plan would succeed. He worried whether they would be received badly, and how the meeting with the young lady would end it was unknown. In a special salon of the Academy, Selin Bergman and his companions Gilbert, Valerie, Lisa Lott, and Laura Panetti settled in for a formal meeting. Opposite them was a group of female students serving tea, and between them stood a low table with a tea set. The woman leading the opposite group, Nadia Louiver, introduced herself and her companions Pamela Sadie and Juliette Janer, and with a confident smile addressed Salim directly, asking him to say what their purpose was for coming. Suddenly he was seized by tension. He quietly realized that the Louiver faction consisted mostly of women, and this made the luxurious room uneasy for him. Sensing his hesitation, Lisa Lott spoke up and confirmed that she had already allowed herself to assess the overall situation for them. She detailed her findings, explaining that Laura Panetti was now cut off in the academy and was in a very dangerous position. Lisa also added that if she directly helped Laura, she would inevitably face disgraceful dismissal. Worried and choosing his words, he asked if this was exactly why they sought to borrow the power of Louiver faction. Nadia smiled warmly and said that he was indeed as kind as people said, and this phrase clearly caught him off guard. Her smile was disarming but at the same time troubled him. He felt that every time they met, she praised him. According to the Pathfinder system, he knew he was not a good person, but she seemed to have decided to find at least a drop of good in him and uplift him. Reviewing their meetings, he realized that her praise was merely a polite way to keep him at a distance, and this realization settled in his mind. She was a frightening woman. When she spoke, her sharp gaze fell on him and confirmed what he had not said. She directly stated that their matter, as she suspected, concerned Laura Panetti. The conversation had barely continued when the salon door suddenly opened, and a student with glasses and braided pigtails ran in, loudly shouting that she had news for everyone from last night. She ran into the room, out of breath. Giulietto, Selin Bergman just saved Laura Panetti. The student explained that he had driven off several boys bothering Laura, even using magic, and this news instantly raised a wave of admiration in the company. One girl noted that this was so like Selin helping beautiful girls, another added that his beauty matched his good character, and Lisa Lott quietly said that all this too much resembled a popular legend. After this explosion of emotions, Nadia Louiver froze, her face unreadable. Lisa Lott began to apologize for the interruption, but Nadia quietly whispered that she understood everything and looked at us just as Lisa said, with a barely noticeable, knowing smile on her lips. Her thoughts flew to a popular romance novel that had spread throughout the capital. It told a love story between a nobleman and an ordinary girl, and the nobleman, who strangely resembled Salim, became so popular that common people whispered about him. She continues whispering to herself in her thoughts. She knows she shouldn't get carried away, but she can't shake the feeling that she is the villain of this story, a rival for the heart of the main hero, and this feeling has become especially strong now that Salim has come to her with a request. She looks into her cup of tea and drives away that thought. She is not that heroine at all. She is destined to inherit a hereditary title, so there is no point in thinking that she will ever be engaged to someone like that nobleman from the story. Her thoughts turn to Leo, a hero from the people. She sees real talent in him, but she is annoyed that he imposes his weak power on her, and bitterly to herself she quite disdainfully called him a sly fox. This internal assessment seems directed at Salim. He looks at her with a tense expression. Nadia says she knows. He has saved ordinary people many times as the famous Louisver, but admits that dealing with people like him, good people, is difficult for her. He coldly replied that he intervened in that situation with the girl only because it happened right in front of him. Nadia barely smiled and retorted that no one has been able to recruit Leo yet, and if Salim is interested, he might try to talk to him. In Salim's mind, a vision of the future flashed lightning fast, a memory from another life. He saw Leo wildly devoted, who together with Nadia protects people, and felt that if Nadia properly nurtures Leo's talent, he will grow into a strong and loyal ally. Turning to the present, his face froze in determination. He realized he would not leave the student in trouble, and with a firm voice declared that he would take responsibility for protecting Laura Panetti. She froze in shock at her instant agreement. Nadia Louisver leaned forward, a confident smile playing on her lips. She confirmed that she accepted his plea, but wondered if she should expect something in return. She then advised him not to be so wary and suggested forming a team for the monthly competition at the academy, then jokingly asked if he could even make up his mind. He hesitated over her proposal. The competition had always been an arena where noble houses showed their power, but he realized that if he and Nadia united, their combined strength would be too powerful. Her true ambitions flared with passionate enthusiasm. She declared that she would defeat the proud royal family, crush the provincial nobles, and put the naive ladies in their place, while Princess Rafaela simmered with indignation in the background. The spectacle horrified him. He recoiled, remembering that the Duchy of Bergman and the Marquisate of Louisver were already operating almost entirely independently. Such a public display of power would be perceived as a direct challenge to the royal family. Though hesitant, he pulled himself together, admitted to himself that he also wanted to humiliate the royalist faction, and, gathering resolve, agreed to cooperate with her. Their alliance was finally sealed. Nadia declared that now they were comrades, insisted that he address her by her first name, and he agreed, accepted her offer, and asked in return to be called Salim. While they were negotiating terms, other members of Nadia's faction approached. Smiling Pamela alongside reserved Julieta, and Jaina announced that they would also join the team. Camilla greeted him with bright energy, and Julieta made a more restrained but polite introduction, and both called him by the name he had just been allowed. He smiled in response to the greeting and thought to himself that it was the first time he addressed girls from other noble houses by their first names. Turning back to those present, he asked if there was anything else. He silently gazed at his new teammates while they chatted lively among themselves. Pamela Stadi apologized to Nadia Louisver, who noted that Selena seemed to laugh little. Another student, Julieta Janer, suggested that since his entourage was mostly male, he probably just forgot how to behave with women. This observation makes him look within himself. Although he was taught manners worthy of a duke's son, in reality he had almost no practice communicating with other students. He understands that he can rely on these skills in dealing with Leo, but this requires conscious effort. He quietly apologizes and finally decides to communicate sincerely with them. Returning to the group, he placed his hand on his heart in a solemn gesture and expressed hope that from now on they would all work well together. A sudden, refined gesture unexpectedly threw Nadia's entire group off balance. The young women blushed, their hands simultaneously flew to their faces. A general, embarrassed scream broke out. Their reaction momentarily embarrassed him. He notices their admiration, and a small smile appears on his lips as he realizes the effect he has made. He decides that this feeling is not so unpleasant after all. A brief moment of pleasure is instantly shattered by an internal jolt. An invisible system informs him that he had a malicious thought, and because of this he loses 10 experience points. The notification stuns him. The shock quickly turns into rage. He silently screams in despair, asking himself why such an innocent thought should lead to punishment. Later, sitting with his comrades, his anger was still boiling. In his soul he cursed this foolish system and wanted to give in to dark thoughts. After all, He was being punished anyway, but immediately restrained himself because he realized that even thoughts could cost even more experience points. His silent agitation did not go unnoticed. As they were leaving, Gilbert Benson noticed Salim's unusual silence and gloom. It exhausted him. Valerie Meldars agreed, adding that Salim spoke dryly and briefly, and suggested that Lady Nadia Leuver must be quite perceptive to see something valuable in this. Salim turned his attention to Laura Panetti, who had stayed behind, and gently asked if his mood had frightened her. She shuddered, raised her eyes, her cheeks reddened, and although she denied it, anxiety was readable on her face. Meanwhile, Salim's comrades discussed their affairs. Gilbert asked Nadia how her preparations for the upcoming training battle were going. She assured that everything was fine and turned the question to him and Valerie coldly stated that they do not leak information to other houses. Unlike some people, Gilbert laughed out loud and agreed that everyone should just do their best. Somewhere on the academy grounds, Laura Panetti's friends approached her and, smiling, called her by name. They sighed with relief and told her how sweet she was and how glad they were that she seemed to finally be making friends properly. They were also pleased that the misunderstanding over those medics had finally been resolved. Suddenly Salim appeared, grabbed Laura by the hand. She dropped her handkerchief, and from afar his companions burst out in fury. Nadia demanded explanations about what he was doing. Gilbert accused him of doing it on purpose, and Valerie angrily said that getting so close to Laura was unforgivable. He ignored their looks, smiled slyly, looked down at the surprised Laura, and whispered that someone had appeared again. And then just as quickly he turned and left, leaving Laura with flushed cheeks and confused among her friends. The comrades watched this scene and could not believe their eyes. Gilbert grumbled about why Salim was so obsessed with Laura. Nadia admitted that she could not stand up to Salim and clarified that it was not because of any feelings for him. Valerie simply said that the chasm between them and Salim was huge. Gilbert insisted that Valerie explain why Selena tried so hard to approach Laura. He thought her assertiveness should not give Laura any reason for insecurity and allowed guessed whether Selena was just very caring. While they argued, Laura's friends had already made their conclusion. They saw how Salim helped a beautiful girl and made another house apologize as if with no benefit to himself, and this selfless act, in their opinion, explained why most girls at the academy became his devoted followers. Valerie offered a more complex explanation. She reminded that the Duke was ambitious and the Crown Prince was wary of him, so Salim could not stand out quietly supporting Leo. He was gaining strength in gathering information, and his recent behavior, which looked like foolish infatuation, was a trap to weaken the Duke's vigilance. Gilbert froze in surprise, and Valerie admitted that Salim had been so confused lately that their master scolded him, and this made her wonder if there was another reason behind it. He recalled his youth during a visit to Bergman Castle. Duke Bergman praised Gilbert, the son of Viscount Belson, for his promising swordsmanship, and young Gilbert beamed with praise. Then the Duke turned to his son and urged Salim to try harder, to which young Salim responded with a bright, cheerful thank you. But Valerie remembered that that day there was something else in the boy's eyes, a look he considered deeply troubling. But even then, before meeting at the academy, he already understood Salim's nature. Salim always pushed his subordinates into the spotlight, gave them a chance to shine, while he himself remained in the shadows and led. And by doing this, he leads them forward. Valerie comes to a firm conclusion. Their general is truly formidable. On the eve of the training battle, he hardens his resolve, decisively deciding that they must fight with all their might. New future is born. In front of the great academy building, the demonstration battle was declared open. Filled with excitement, Gilbert loudly cheers on his leader, "Let's go, Master Selin." Nearby, Nadia Leuver turns to her comrades Pamela and Juliet with a confident smile, says that they are also participating and will act together as allies, and then decisively declares that she will show the local nobles the true power of their faction. Hearing this bold statement, Gilbert froze for a moment and only awkwardly whispered, "Ah." The team looks at Nadia with a cold gaze, and he mentally understands what battle 6 against 16 they have gotten into. He admits that Nadia is still formidable and he would not want to make an enemy of her, because deep down she is kind and deserves reliable allies. His team, representing the House of Bourbon, consisted of himself, Gilbert, and Lisa Lott, and beside them stood allies members of the House of Louis Ver team, Nadia, Pamela, and Julietta. Meanwhile, watching from afar, Leo reflects on the situation. He is currently training with the Berman family, but is not yet part of them and cannot join the team, so for now he remains to observe how they grow. Nadia decisively gathers the team and briefly lays out the plan. Destroying the enemy's target is victory, but protecting their own is no less important. She proposes a simple tactic. The whole team goes on the attack and Salim remains the sole defender. Raising a small sports projectile, she looks at him and asks if he can handle it. As soon as the match began, Nadia confidently told Salim to leave the defense to her, quickly explaining that she would use a decoy spell to cover their target. With a determined smile, she encouraged the others, shouted, "Attack!" And herself, along with Gilbert, Pamela, and Julieta, rushed forward. Their charge instantly meets resistance. The opponent's blade clashes with Gilbert's sword. Startled, he hears a warning from the attacker Valeria, "Be careful." Standing in the defensive line, Salim recognizes his former colleague. Salim doubts. Does Valeria really believe that his team of freshmen can stand against them? The battle on the field intensifies. Valeria sharply replies that his team is very famous. While the fight rages on, Salim, with growing horror, realizes that they are dealing with eternal champions and grits his teeth in despair, wondering how they ended up in this situation. He stands firm in the shimmering, intricate barrier and declares that the barrier will not yield. When the enemy assault begins, one of the comrades calls for reinforcements. Gilbert meanwhile shouts in despair and demands that someone return to their position faster, and Lisa, Lot, and Pamela watch with tense faces, prepare to take the hit. The barrier shatters into thousands of fragments under relentless pressure, and on the other side, Nadia Louiver from the opposing team smiles contemptuously, mocking their defense and questioning whether they really believe they can protect the vanguard with such pathetic efforts, accusing them of gross underestimation. From the stands, other students stood stunned by the displayed power. Someone could not comprehend how these attackers could be freshmen. Another said they did not even know about such a powerful barrier spell, and Valeria remained calm. She felt the true power of this chat and knew where it came from. Unmistakably, the power of the House of Bird People. The second and third rounds of the tournament are already behind, and Nadia Louiver confidently strides forward with the team. She smiles and says that their next match is the semi-final. Watching them leave, Selin Bergman reflects on their cunning, forcing the team leader to become a defender. He sees that it works well for them and decides it's time to implement his plan. While they were watching, Lisa Lotbelt approached and told Nadia that for the Queen's classmates, this is really something special. They are already in the semifinals. She added that 3 of the 4 remaining teams are led by freshmen, which clearly surprised Nadia. A foot taps impatiently on the ground, and Nadia says she has already had the chance to see the real skills of the freshmen. The conversation is abruptly interrupted by the noisy entrance of Mark Sarmiento. He directly addresses Salim, mockingly teases his charity, and reminds him of his reputation as a defender, then with a broad smile declares how he looks forward to meeting him in the semifinals. While the semifinal is underway, Mark laughs mockingly, calling Salim's team a showy decoy, roars for Salim to prepare, and then orders his 5 to attack all at once. When the opposing team rushed into attack, Salim realized his first trick to confuse them worked, but now his true intentions were revealed. The 5 attackers unleashed a coordinated magical assault. Mark laughed maniacally, mocking the odds of 5 against 1, while Salim was surrounded by a glowing magical circle on the ground. Salim calmly raises his hand and a powerful barrier rises, easily repelling the onslaught. He orders the attackers to retreat beyond his protection and knows to himself, this is not just a magic lesson in a duel of sword and physical strength. He will win because his memory and past battles give him an advantage. His words hit Mark. He grits his teeth in irritation. Salim calmly says that as an aristocrat, he does not intend to lose to an opponent he can defeat, and warns Mark that he will have to try again. When his defeated opponents lay on the ground, Nadia Louiver watched the scene and with a bitter smile said it was simply foolish when Salim defended himself alone against that tactic. But if he wants to win with a sword, let him prove it. And waving it off, she sarcastically congratulated Mark's team on reaching the semifinals. Attention shifts to the next stage. She confidently announces with a smile that the final match is about to begin, and the crowd roars with anticipation. On the arena, the opposing team stands ready. Crown Princess Rafaela, alongside her teammates, steps forward and boldly says that they will do it. She draws out the rapier, the blade sharply pointed forward. On the edge, Nadia and Lisa Lat watch her exit. Nadia subconsciously realizes that in the final they will face the team of the Crown Princess and that Selim will again have to hold the defense. Then the official voice announces the start of the final duel. As soon as the announcement sounds, the princess bursts into motion, lunges forward, and in a moment closes the distance. The rapier strikes but freezes right before Salim's face. An invisible force stops it. He catches the blade's tip between his fingers and a shimmering magical barrier flares around him. Unflustered, he calmly notes her impressive speed. Meanwhile, Mark Sarmiento watches from the side, observing the unfolding clash and analyzing every move. He notices that the rest of Salim's team is fully focused on defense, the complete opposite of the ruthless attack his team employs. The clash has turned into a deadlock, a true one-on-one duel, the princess's attack against Salim's defense. Raphael admits that although he defeated her with a sword in their last encounter, his true strength lies clearly in these powerful barrier duels. This unexpectedly made her laugh. It was interesting to stand opposite an opponent whose face remained impassive. She thought to herself, the crown princess turns out to be a true lover of battle. Selim in turn seemed a bit stunned by her reaction. Her admiration hardened and turned into determination, fueled by fear. She admits that she underestimated him, that was a mistake, and his response was exactly what she expected. With a powerful surge, she says she will now throw herself at him with all her strength. She unleashes a whirlwind of magical energy, a fierce, spinning vortex aimed directly at Salim, and he sees the power of the attack, acknowledging that her combat might now surpass his own, but he has already faced such overwhelming trials and calmly assesses her as truly formidable. Despite her power, he is confident he will not lose this clash. His goal is not to defeat her, but to hold her back, to buy time for Nadia and the others to break through the opponent's defense, so he decides simply to endure, conserving magic and precisely adjusting the strength of his barrier to her relentless pressure. The heated dispute subsides and she looks at him with surprise. She admits she heard rumors that he was a weakling who relied on others' support, but openly acknowledges he is actually quite strong. He smiles and thanks her for the compliment, adding that strength is his only real advantage, then gently remarks to her, "Be more attentive to your surroundings because some of your teammates are crying." She, puzzled, asks what he means. He explains that her immense combat power does not suit a young princess and adds that this is exactly the cinematic thing Nadia already mentioned. His words reach her, an expression of understanding appears on her face. Below in the arena, teammates erupt in joyful shouts, celebrating victory, and the match has already ended while her attention was fully focused on him. But in a moment, Nadia Louver triumphantly raised the championship trophy and proclaimed the victory of the united team of Louver and Birdman, while Salim from his seat watched the celebration and thought that his initial fears that joining the House of Louver would bring problems turned out to be unfounded. The tournament went smoothly. Next to him, Lisa quietly giggled. She asked what he thought, and he confirmed that although there were no problems, everything turned out to be quite interesting. Meanwhile, Gelsamana Durrani approaches Nadia Louver, notes that during the recent final Nadia was openly preoccupied with thoughts about the Duke's son during the match with the princess, asks why she behaves as if in the middle of a fight, formally introduces herself, "I am Gelsamana Durrani," and announces, "This is a duel." Without any warning, she rushed forward and slapped Nadia with such a harsh blow that she was thrown backward, and Gelsamina explained her action. Since Nadia sent that nasty woman flying with her strike, she simply returned the favor. Turning back to Salim, everything around was flooded with rays, and she exclaimed what a pleasant sight it was. She turned to him, saying she wanted to make sure he saw it too. He, obviously stunned by the sudden cruelty, only responded quietly and uncertainly. Salim groans inwardly and is completely confused, not knowing how to react. He tried to behave like a gentleman in front of women, but now realizes that a true gentleman would not have such a conversation, and he feels that discussing Gelsamina and Laura was inappropriate. While his thoughts oppress him, he and his companions turn and leave, leaving Gelsamana alone under the arch. They had not gone far when Lisa returned to Gelsamina with a sly smile and declared that she herself would praise Nadia without unnecessary embellishments, adding that it was a pity she did not see Nadia's face during that incident, but watching Salim defend her so devotedly was a real spectacle. Tension shifts to Princess Raphaela. Jill's summoner says that thanks to the influence of the Crown Prince, she managed to get into the Royal Capital Academy, so now she must study diligently, and overhearing this, the embarrassed Salim only stammers and murmurs admiringly how amazing Nadia is, completely unaware of the political undertones of the conversation. The princess is silent, her face frozen in a determined expression as she absorbs Gelsamana's words. Behind her, Salim and the others watch, unaware of the tension simmering beneath the surface. After expressing her opinion, Gelsamina approaches Salim directly, her voice quiet and steady, and she promised him that this humiliation will return someday. The courtier of the most powerful princess made her intentions clear. At the academy, Lisa Lot Bell and her companions discussed the recent training fight, and Lisa noted that Salim's magical barrier was incredibly strong. She found it strange that he used it specifically for that princess, since Salim was known for his support and healing magic, so now she doubts his true combat strength. Lieutenant Mark Sarmiento quietly chews over everything. He admits to himself that Nadia was right to be wary of Salim and that he took a big risk relying on her protection. He also recalls how Pamela used his own blocking magic during the semifinals and now cannot help but acknowledge the power of Nadia's magic. Dominant Durndy sits and watches, a knowing look playing on her face. She thinks that, as she predicted, her obstacle magic turned out to be unnecessary, and an important fact comes to mind. Selene Bergman, the eldest son of the Duke, only hurriedly mastered restoration magic the day before entering the academy. She continues to analyze, talking with Nadia. Gelsomina notes with surprise that Salim suddenly mastered healing magic, a skill possessed by very few, and adds that according to church reports he is not assigned to any parish and treats ordinary people for free, which has become a troublesome problem for the church, from which Gelsomina herself prefers to keep her distance. Crown Princess Rafaela briskly explained the political complexity. The land of Louis Vert in the Western Mountains trades with dwarves and therefore has many church connections. But the Louis Vert family consciously does not interfere in the internal affairs of the church and has made great efforts to maintain this separation. So, according to her, if Salim officially joins the church, it will create a serious problem for the Louis Vert holdings. Later, Gelsomina ordered Pamela to continue monitoring Selene. Pamela readily agreed and added with a smile that even without orders she intended to keep an eye on her. When Juliet approaches them, Pamela, noticeably embarrassed, says she has already met the son of Duke Bergman but does not remember him being so handsome, some strange discrepancy, and she cannot understand what the matter is. All this grew out of the memory of the arrogant, unpleasant trio of nobility, Salim, Valerie, and Gilbert, who always seem to prove their superiority. The image of that Salim is sharply unlike the one they see now, and Gelsomina agrees he looks completely different. She remembers him with a gloomy face, as if he bore a heavy burden, but now there is some glow in him, and she admits that this change makes the rumors about him healing the sick for free plausible. Although he is completely different, Pamela is simply enchanted by the new Salim. She beams as she tells how he stands up for girls who are teased, even extended a helping hand to Nadia, how he impressed in training fights without pretension, and how fresh and sincere he spoke with Nadia. So for Pamela he is simply wonderful. But Gelsomina sharply interrupts their admiration, warns not to succumb so quickly, and points out that he might just be pretending. Embarrassed, Juliet exclaims that they need to develop immunity to handsome men, which greatly irritates Gelsomina. She blushed, embarrassed by her friend's suggestions. They tease her, push her to get closer to Selene Bergman, and even suggest inviting him for tea, but she firmly refuses. She cannot fathom what he might be planning. Her mind races wildly, trying to reconcile his dazzling public image with the report she read. Although he does not look evil, she doubts his true intentions. The document details the use of rare restoration magic and enchantments, his help to ordinary people, and the creation of magical devices, the designs of which he gave away for free. And before coming to the academy, the Bergman heir supposedly quarreled with the church to gain popular favor. He senses a discrepancy between the person she met and that data. Looking out the window, she suddenly decides. Having heard that Salim is engaged in charity in the capital, she decides to go at the next holiday and see his deeds with her own eyes. Later she stands with her friends and suddenly Lisa Lott says that she will also go to scout Salim's movements. Nadia wants to join but explains that she must first reply to a letter from her mother. Nearby, Gelsomina talks with her mother, who asks if everything is all right. Gelsomina reassures her, and her mother reminds her to study diligently to be a true support. The investigation leads her to a poor district of the capital, and there, among the shabby houses, she notices him. She is not alone, her friends are nearby. They notice the vigilance of Salim's escort and decide to keep their distance, watching from afar. To remain unnoticed, Gelsomina begins to weave a blocking spell. In the ruined courtyard, Salim stands in the middle of a huge, glowing magical circle. With his hand raised, he directs incredible power. The energy burst outward and patched the cracks, fixing the collapsed walls of the surrounding buildings. Gelsomina stood in awe. She recognized earth magic performed with incredible precision, and thought that his skills in healing, enchanting, and creating barriers were already impressive, but this proved his magical technique was on a completely different level. He moves from one building to another, preparing homes and accepting only words of thanks from grateful residents. Gelsomina continues to watch, her face revealing nothing. Suddenly he turns, his gaze fixed directly on the place where she is hiding. He praises the impressive security of the ducal court and, addressing Gelsomina, asks if she managed to break through his magic cover, then glances at Nadia and jokingly asks if she enjoys the walk through the city center. He met them with a disarming smile and suggested taking it as a chance encounter, as if he knew these places well. Gelsomina cautiously agreed. When the matter was settled, Salim ordered the guards to step back and thanked her for understanding. He turns back to Nadia and smiles. With her nearby, Gelsomina will feel calmer. Mentally, he adds that she is stubborn and unlikely to warm up to him quickly, then offers to take a walk to the nearest open-air market. He leads her through the noisy market, telling about a place rarely visited even by nobles. Here are lots of strange and interesting goods. They stop by a stall with carved wooden dolls where a gray-haired merchant sets the price $1 for 1 silver coin. From afar, Jasmina watches the scene unfolding with surprise on her face. Meanwhile, the seller smiles as he takes their money and Salim and Nadia savor local treats. The pleasant moment was interrupted when Nadia approached the merchant and stated that he was mistaken. The coin returned to her was not the silver one she gave, but 10 times more valuable. The man snorted disdainfully and told her that a person of noble birth should know better. He insisted that the coin was genuine, brushing off her anxiety as something even a child wouldn't understand. Nadia was impressed, and Jasmina, still watching, boiled with indignation at his impudence. He continued to assault them, questioning whether Salim had carved the wooden doll himself, boasting of his supposedly superior skill, and as he said this, he physically pushed them away from the installation. Selene calmly intervened, offering to pay with a silver coin from her purse, telling Nadia to drop the matter if he was satisfied, and then casually remarked that the shopkeeper probably had a backache from too much hard work with wood. When he spoke, soft light slowly spread from his palm. The shopkeeper suddenly exclaimed and, clutching his lower back in surprise, felt the chronic pain simply vanish. Salim just smiled, said he knew a bit about healing, and encouraged the man to continue making wonderful crafts. The shopkeeper just stood stunned. Walking away from the counter, Nadia turned to Salim with a serious expression and asked if he had just used healing magican for free at that end, then insisted she wanted to know what he got from the shopkeeper in return. She moved on as if she had put aside her question. He smiled and said that if she liked the bracelet in the shop they passed, he would buy it for her as a gift, then gestured toward another item and asked Nadia if she liked it. No sooner had she started to answer than she felt the coolness of the chain as he fastened the necklace around her neck. "What?" she whispered, surprised by this sudden gesture. He stepped back a little, a gentle smile on his face. "Ah yes, it is beautiful," he said, and his gaze fixed on the pendant now resting on her skin. She caught her breath, completely confused. "Wow," she faltered, looking at the item. It was a beautiful pendant. He explained his choice, noting the delicate wooden carving that seemed to bring the floral ornament to life, and said that the design with natural material motifs and life energy perfectly matched her own healthy beauty. Her cheeks flushed from the compliment. There it was, she realized, a subtle tactic. He praised the object to praise her through it, a delicate social move meant to disarm her. This man, she thought with a mix of anxiety and admiration, was dangerous. But he seemed lost in thoughts about the pendant. He reasoned that although the shopkeeper was skilled, the modest material it was made from meant it was not an item for the nobility, so it was not worth judging its price so easily. His face suddenly blossomed with a broad, sincere smile. "Today is wonderful," he exclaimed. "I never thought I would walk through the city with such a girl." Meanwhile, Nadia blushed again, thinking that she was too easily falling for his tricks. He touched his chin, a shy expression flashed across his face. "Oh, but I have no experience in such matters," he admitted, looking away. "I feel awkward." Her head was spinning. Whether this man was sincere or calculating, she could not say. If it was a performance, he was a master of manipulation, but if genuine, he was slowly and persistently undermining her defenses. She clenched her fist and with stunning horror realized that this was the hardest person to deal with. She watches as Salim suggests returning. Tone is casual, evening is approaching, and his calm appearance hides a storm of thoughts within him. The feeling he gives her, she would never associate with a man who is almost decent. It is hard for her to reconcile the young man before her with the unpleasant boy she knew before. How could he have changed so much? But she is sure the person standing here now is not driven by ambitions or hidden plans. Today, more than ever, she is convinced of his sincerity as he moves forward, growing into a saint. Next to Salim Jasmine's bed, she apologizes for disturbing him due to heatstroke, but he reassures her, says he is bad at using body enhancement, and tells her not to worry, he will handle everything himself. To himself, he notices a strangely high level of magic in the manor's servants, which worries him, although he believes his own recovery will catch up over time. He mentally counts. It has been 2 months since he arrived in the capital, and his level has been slowly rising. Suddenly, a prompt appears before him offering to use physical support to aid recovery, and he agrees. The system confirmed the action and immediately awarded experience points, which together with the quest completion bonus suddenly boosted him to level 40. He could not believe his eyes. It was 10 times more than before. A message appeared on the screen, new skill acquired, regenerative healing, and he eagerly wondered what this power was. His excitement instantly changes to stunned silence when the skill description appears. It can heal any and all bodily injuries. He suddenly realized that this new power was a completely different level compared to his previous healing, which only worked on minor wounds. Unlike body enhancement, useless against the weak, this skill could become a real game changer. After some time, Selim stands on the balcony. Valeria approaches and addresses him as young sir, while Lisa stands nearby, looking over the railing. He informs Valeria that he can now heal almost any injury. Valeria is surprised and silent. Although Salim's healing magic was previously useful, it could not handle serious wounds, even combined with his body enhancement. Salim says directly the healing magic is not created by him, but by the system, which does everything automatically and deceives him into thinking he is casting the spell himself. He asks Valeria not to confuse this because he needs himself to find and train people who truly possess healing abilities. Understanding the consequences, Valerie immediately agrees to organize it and rushes to report to Duke Bergman. As soon as he leaves, Salim returns and calls, "Wait, Lee Salish." She turns away from the railing, and a slight surprise plays on her face as if she is asking why he called her by name. She shifted her gaze to Salim and Valerie and asked how everything went. Valerie replied that the expensive carrier pigeon had just flown off and added that she had already sent the report to her land, after which she offered one of her birds for their use. To her offer, Valerie Nelt responded that he would immediately prepare the report. Lisa Lott waved off his formalities, explaining that this was a private carrier pigeon and she had already done her part, so there was no need to worry, especially regarding the Belt family's information network. Her tone became playfully affectionate as she looked at Salim. She admitted that the letter was for her sisters and that she enjoyed teasing them with stories about the prince's life, as if from a dream. Winking, she promised to play with him more later, and he clearly felt awkward about it. In a moment, one bird flew out of the cage and gently landed on his outstretched hand. Lisa was also delighted. Even animals were drawn to the young prince, and he himself looked confused, recalling that earlier they always avoided him and wondered if he himself had changed. When the bird flew away again, Lisa Lott smiled and said that it seemed to be more drawn to him than to her, its own tamer. He watched it fly off, and a quiet satisfaction spread through his chest. Being liked by an animal was pleasant. Later, in the ceremonial hall, a nobleman with his arm in a sling was brought before them. He stood with pain on his face and looked at Salim as if acknowledging the prince's presence and begging for help. Without hesitation, Salim said he would heal. He placed his hands on the man's severely injured arm. Bright light enveloped the limb. A powerful surge of energy passed through him as he healed, and he gained 1,000 experience points, rising to level 41. The light faded, and before them appeared a perfectly restored arm. The noblemen were speechless at this impossible healing, and nearby Valeria trembled with delight and declared that there was no healer mage in the entire country with such power. They ran up to Salim, grabbed him by the shoulders in uncontrollable joy, and praised him for the incredible deed and the effort made, but it took its toll. Salim's eyes closed, and he began to sway from exhaustion. Later, lying in bed, he thought about the incredible power of his new skill. Regenerative healing was truly special, but the cost and mana expenditure were no less, and he sighed, realizing that for now he could only heal one person per day. He finally grasped the essence of his regeneration skill. As soon as you activate it, it mercilessly drains magic from him until the target is fully restored, and using it so recklessly means leaving yourself completely vulnerable. To overcome this limitation and reduce the enormous magical cost, he realized he must hone the healing ability itself, otherwise he won't be able to help more people than he already has. In Valeria's office, he considered the situation. He understood how much Salim wanted to heal many people as soon as possible, but warned that this new ability was too powerful and profound to use recklessly, so he suggested waiting for the next lunar vacation and only then start treating the wounded. He detailed his reasoning, fearing that as soon as news about a cure for the incurable spread, it would cause panic. So for now, he insisted that knowledge about Selin's ability be limited to few chosen ones in the ducal house, and the plan was that during the summer holidays, Selin would tour their holdings and heal as many people as possible. Salim listened attentively and understood Valeria's logic, but accepting her plan now was difficult for him. Before the start of the summer holidays, he needed to manage one very important task. He opened up to Valeria. He wanted to master the new power as soon as possible and asked her to bring manifestations of impatience, even several at once, so he could practice and get used to the skill, and Valeria seemed to catch his intention. He politely agreed with the plan and thanked Valeria for organizing everything. Suddenly, a grim memory from a past life surfaced in his mind. On the eve of the summer holidays, a major incident was supposed to happen that would significantly increase the influence of demons. He decided to do everything possible to minimize the damage as much as possible. As the summer holidays approached, Selin was walking down the corridor when suddenly Pamela called him by name. He looked back at her, appearing strangely pale, and asked if something had happened. Her face was full of anxiety and acceptance. She knew that the time had finally come. With a heavy heart, she told Salim and Juliet Janey that she had to take a leave and return home. A great misfortune had occurred at the ancestral estate Sunny Barney. A strong attack of demonic beasts had broken out, and her mother was seriously wounded. Her face was tear-streaked, but her jaw was clenched with determination. She said she would stand on the front lines to tame the demonic beast, and warned, even her own mother could not defeat it because it was an extremely dangerous creature. In response, Salim, crossing his arms, insisted with stubborn determination that he would go with them no matter what, even if he had to borrow the power of the Louisver family. He clarified the connection. Pamela's mother was the sister of Baron Lover, so Pamela and Nadia were cousins. Camilla unravels this complex matter. Although the experimental family is firmly under the influence of Louis Verberani, hidden problems smolder between the two families. She sincerely cares for Nadia and the Baron, but feels a sacred duty to single-handedly defeat the monster for the honor of her family and the independence of her possessions. This context explains Pamela's determination. In the noble world, the baronial title and the right to rule independently are given only to those who protect their people from demonic beasts and make their lands prosperous, and the barony that seeks to establish itself will have to achieve this on its own. He feels the burden of their pride and understands that clinging to the facade may bring even worse trouble, so he turns to Pamela and offers another way. If she does not take the power of the Louisver family, let her take his healing power can save the Baroness. He winked. He was developing a confident plan. He noticed that using the power of the ducal house would badly affect the Louisver family, so instead he would secretly help his friend, pretending to be a commoner, a role in which he himself says he is very skilled. Lisa Lott notes that his appearance is a bit too conspicuous for a commoner, but admits if he dresses more modestly, he might get away with it. She notes his familiarity with commoner culture and adds that he is currently treating the king for illness in the capital. Juliet picks up the voice, confirming that she has thoroughly investigated his actions. When Pamela begins to protest, Lisa Lott sharply interrupts her and reminds her, if she falls, the need for the research bearer will be lost, and Salim reinforces this, insisting that she accept his health offer. Resistance collapses, relief comes. She thanks Salim and apologizes for the trouble, and he confidently says he will take it upon himself, and suddenly an icy memory emerges. In a previous life, she returned home precisely because of this event, and it cost her life. The memory is clear and dark. She will not let this tragic future repeat, where the fall of the knowledge bearer will destroy the Louisver family. She knows she must face this demonic threat. She needs the power of Nodios, so all obstacles that could harm the Louisver family must be destroyed. Outside the walls of the academy, Selin Bergman approached Leo with a serious expression and said that he needed to ask for a favor, and Leo, confused, only repeated the word as a question. He explained his request in detail. He wanted to visit a friend to join the hunt for a demonic creature. Although he knew Leo was in the middle of training, Salim still asked him to go with him. Leo looked embarrassed. Why would the son of a noble lord ask something from a commoner like him? Salim explained that his friends were also noble, and to avoid political problems, he asked Leo to go with him, pretending to be a commoner. He finally confessed the real reason was that he wanted to borrow Leo's power. Salim sincerely believed that with the future hero nearby, they would overcome any demonic creature that appeared, and simply wanted to help. Hearing this, Leo recalled Salim's unique abilities, understood his intention, and agreed to the plan. When the company gathered, the wheels of the carriage spun and clattered along the road. They set off towards the demonic beast that towered high. At the Cadia Academy, she appeared in an unusual form, quite unlike the other students, asking somewhat shyly if it was strange. Valerie smiled and said it suited her. Cadia added that she would participate as a regular student at the next event, and glancing at Salim, Valerie, and Leo, asked them to look after her. While they were preparing, a recent memory crept into Leo's mind. A commentator like him had received one important request. He recalled how at the Bergman estate, Lady Nadia Louisver approached him, inquiring about rumors that the Bergman family's attempts to recruit him had failed and whether he was really as strong as they said, then invited him to visit the Louisver estate. He firmly refused her offer, saying he did not intend to leave the capital because his work was in the provinces. Nadia smiled in response and said that if it was about conditions, she could arrange a better deal. Louisver estate was thriving and would allow him to travel periodically to the capital for work while he honed his skills. But Leo remained steadfast and declared that his duty to Selina did not allow him to serve another noble house. Usual nudged her to throw a remark about his unreasonable loyalty and aloud asked if Salim was holding him back. Leo quickly clarified that he was neither a noble nor a subordinate, he just wanted to work alongside them in the city, and even asked if she herself was a noble, while Salim, sitting nearby, grew worried. He realized that if this continued, Leo would inevitably be lured away from him. Every attempt to recruit him did not escape Selina's attention, who later approached Leo and asked if he intended to lose him. He remembered that Leo once said he could not defeat him in a duel, but Selina knew that Leo was unusually strong for a commoner. He recalled being told that Leo treated the sick for free and repaired houses, behaving like a saint, and suddenly he was struck by a painful realization: such a person cannot be tied down. Feeling his friend's anxiety, Leo handed him an apple and, thanking Salim for his sincere desire to serve, admitted he was glad, but it was an unrealistic path, apologized and downplayed his abilities, saying his magic was only a combat specialization, nothing extraordinary, and finally revealed the true reason for his loyalty. Salim saved his life when Leo nearly died from poisoning after eating a demonic creature. Salim pondered and admitted that Leo's special strength had saved him more than once and was a great help to everyone. He realized that Leo was already too strong on his own and really did not need him, so he accepted his friend's choice and said not to rush to decide his own path to graduation. The matter was settled. The group set off. Training tent number 8 stood to the east of the Louis Vert territory in the north of the capital, and the carriage ride there took a whole day. When they reached training tent number 8, their arrival was completely unexpected. A young man named Frederick met Pamela and asked whom she had brought, but even before her answer explained that these were friends from the Capital Academy, common people with wonderful magical abilities, recommended, and added that since they had not yet been officially accepted, he decided to establish their cooperation himself. Pamela was impressed by his ingenuity. The confident statement stunned Pamela. She looked at Salim's approaching group and felt fear overwhelm her. Everything turned out to be much more complicated than she had thought. She tried to ask Valerie to step back, but he apologized as if not noticing the tension, and with a heavy premonition, Pamela realized that Frederick's mother and brother had completely different intentions. The history of their family was complicated and bitter. The Marquette line was founded by a noble contemporary from a house of the same rank, but their power was barely enough to hold the possessions, a burden passed down from the first Marquette and his wife. But 17 years ago, a terrible tragedy occurred. The plague took the lives of his wife and both parents, and he was left to mourn them along with 2 small children. The family no longer had the strength to bear the territorial debt, so the Louisviers extended a helping hand. Pamela's grandfather, the then Marquis, gave his own daughter as a concubine to the head of this family. It was clear Louis Vermarquis sought to gain influence over the neighboring research lands, and he saw this agreement as the best chance. Later, Louis Vermark became the guardian of Nadia's mother, but his ambitions regarding the educational house faded over time. However, Pamela, as the heiress, could not afford to relax, and this tangled history was the cause of strained relations between her and her older brother Frederick. As soon as she entered the office, her father, the current Marquis, was already sitting and waiting, and fatigue was visible on his face. "Pamela," he said in a heavy voice, "you have returned." She addressed him formally, asked about her mother. The Marquis looked away and told her to go to the bedroom. She would see everything herself there. He admitted guilt but insisted that he would handle the upcoming mission of subjugation himself and asked her to rest, but Pamela knew she could not stand aside while her people suffered. In the bedroom, her mother lay motionless, unconscious. There were no visible injuries, but she had been hit on the head. "Perhaps I will explain to Pamela and Salim what happened." The Martianist had incredible magical power that had already healed all visible wounds, but despite this, she was still unconscious. She pondered this information, and he pressed his hand to his chin. Her powerful magic still kept her alive but was powerless against brain damage. She was in a vegetative state. He assessed his reserves, MP deficit. He had already used magic to help and move, but still had over 80, and instantly calculated that treating the wounded Martianist would require almost all his strength. He stands by the Martianist's bed. Her voice suddenly reaches out to him with a request to wait. She says the treatment will have to be postponed, but a person with great magical power will endure it, and asks first to give her physical support. Pamela looks on, calling Salim anxiously, and the next day they face a mission to exterminate monsters. The next morning, Pamela took the wheel and declared, "The monster taming unit is heading north into the forest, along with 20 knights of the Stati family led by Frederick at the forefront. She and the others will follow them." Their path led them to a small village near the northern forest where, according to rumors, monsters had swarmed. What they saw was utter devastation. The village was burned to the ground, and Pamela was overwhelmed with horror. The terrible sight was unbearable for Pamela. Covers her face and falls into despair. Salim watches, his face hardening as he sees this silent ruin. Walking among the ruins, Valerie reports his findings to Salim. Salim confirms. The peasants were devoured by monsters, the houses are mostly intact, and the inhabitants, he says, have been completely exterminated. He thinks about it, although there are no bodies, the building is too neat for a chaotic monster attack. The scene is anxiously tidy. Claudia draws his attention to the nearby door, pointing to a clean, sharp cut, says it is a sword mark. She explains in detail, the traces of destruction on the inhabitants are not from beasts, and adds that her magical senses did not detect any demon on the way to the village. Her eyes narrowed as she voiced her grim verdict. As an experienced swordswoman, she understood this was not the work of monsters, but a massacre carried out by humans. They realized they are drawn into the internal conflicts of the family they are studying. During the discussion of the state of affairs, the Marchionist openly expressed her concern about the Fair's families, the engagement of Pamela and Frederick, and the oppressive atmosphere surrounding them, grimly noting that it would not be surprising if something terrible happened. Salim pondered her words, his mind racing. He came to the conclusion that if the former Marchionists and Pamela were killed, no one would stand in Frederick's way, but Frederick lacked the combat skills for such an act. This logic seemed flawed until he was struck by a terrifying realization. The Marquis himself had been driven to complete despair. He finally understood. The Marquis no longer thought about the future of his territories or the continuation of his lineage. In despair, he was capable of sacrificing his own wife and daughter. Pamela's terrible scream confirmed his grim thoughts. She froze over the body and exclaimed that this clean, deep cut could not have been inflicted by the monster. She looked back and saw Frederick approaching. Coldly explaining everything, he admitted that he and his men had dealt with the parents of Louisvier's daughter to eliminate the influence of their faction, and that he had no choice but to kill Pamela's mother. Then he looked at Pamela and said that her case was different. His intention became eerily clear when his soldiers moved to surround her. Frederick drew his sword and shouted that she would die here. Pamela froze, unable to believe her eyes, and realized with horror that even her father was involved in this conspiracy. As if on command, the Marquis appeared, his face a mask of stern determination. He pointed to his son, proclaimed Frederick the heir, and ordered him to prove his worth by overthrowing Pamela. Betrayal shattered her peace. Pamela could only stammer in denials, her head spinning. She desperately tried to calm down, remembering that the allies were nearby. Just as Frederick was about to move forward, Salim's group sprang into action, sharply gave orders. Leo was to hold the tent, Katia to charge the knights, and Gilbert and Valerie to create an obstacle. Then he noticed the stiff Pamela and urged her to draw her sword and show Frederick what she was really capable of. When those words were spoken, Pamela screamed fiercely and drew her weapon, her eyes burning with new determination. She declared that for the nobility succession is decided only by force. Frederick sneered contemptuously and said that if she had claimed she could die unsatisfied, and their blades were aimed at me. She lies defeated on the ground, her sword completely out of reach. The duel that was supposed to decide who would become the successor, she thinks with despair, was supposed to be a matter of the noblest aesthetics. But the winner turned out not to be her brother. Instead, Frederick lies unconscious nearby, and Selina Bergman stands over him, clearly seeing the difference in their strength. Katia says that although Frederick is a stubborn aristocrat, he must recover on his own. Then she asked Cody what to do with the man locked in their barrier and advised not to kill him, seeing that the research family lacked the magical power of despair, so it was much more profitable to sell his blood and lineage to another noble house. Pamela, already on her feet, intervenes with a plan. She tells them to tie everyone up and return to the city, assuring that she will take responsibility for holding the father, and adds that some of the knights accompanying them will also have to be persuaded. She sincerely thanks the group for the help. While Salim prepares the rope, a fierce stream of dark energy suddenly bursts out beneath them. The force of the eruption strikes their magical barrier and it cracks and shatters into fragments. Salim froze in shock, realizing that its containment was breached from within. Meanwhile, Leo stands gloomily amid the fallen knights of study. His part of the task is now completed. The source of dark power reveals itself, a pair of sinister eyes burning with dark intent from the depths of shadow. This dreadful sight confirms Salim's fears and pushes him to a terrible conclusion. He recognizes these signs from the past. It is a demonic transformation when a creature is consumed by darkness, and nearby Pamela whispers "Dad" in a trembling voice.